Hello, welcome. How are you? My name is Preston fucking Jacobs, and we are here to talk about ice and some motherfucking fire. Yeah, so how's it going? Today we are going to talk about the very controversial topic of the evil things that Jon has done. And here's the thing is I don't think they're the things that many people think they are. What I consider the evil things that Jon has done. I will say this about Jon Snow. He gets better as the books progress. But so what we're going to be talking about today is some of the things that Jon did in A Game of Thrones that everyone kind of forgets are actually really, really fucking horrible things. Okay? Because we all have to step back. And I don't want anyone, here's the first thing. I don't want anyone saying, well, this is the world they live in. Because that is not a good argument. That means there's never any morality. That means you can never improve because everything is perfectly fine because that's the way society is. Well, you have to understand at the time. No, that is not an excuse. Okay, the world they live in is not an excuse because if you use the world they live in as the excuse, then everyone's treatment of Jon Snow as a bastard and the brutality that he takes from that is justified. Because in the world they live in, bastards are evil creatures born of lust who have no, who ought to have no agency, who are evil and untrustworthy. So like, you can't just say of the time, okay? That's a bullshit excuse that you're saying that morality doesn't exist. So let's go to what I'm talking about here, okay? And we're gonna start with Bran 1, A Game of Thrones, and I want you to really think about if you knew a person like this in real life, okay, how you would act around them, right? So, beginning of A Game of Thrones, Bran's father decides that a 7-year-old boy is ready to witness an execution, an unjust execution. Okay, we have a screwed up system where men are forced to serve for life in the Night's Watch, and we have Garrett, who has been on the wall since a boy, has given 40 faithful years, and after seeing a supernatural creature has a mental breakdown, some PTSD, and flees. Gets picked up by Ned, is not allowed to really explain what he saw, and Ned acts as judge, jury, and executioner. And then later says it's morally best that I'm judge, jury, and executioner because that's the morally correct situation when you swing the sword yourself. It's the best when you're judge, jury, and executioner. That is the best system. So anyway, this isn't a condemnation of Ned. That's for another day. Ned's psychotic. Okay, he's taking a 7-year-old boy to an execution. But here we go. In the middle of the execution, this 7-year-old boy who's been dragged to this execution, okay, his bastard brother, Jon Snow, comes over and he says to him, "Keep the pony well in hand," he whispered, "and don't look away. Father will know if you do." So now it's one thing that Ned brought him to the execution. But if we're gonna have an apology for Ned, he could say, well, I'm bringing him to the execution, but if he doesn't want to look at the execution, he can look away, But no, Jon Snow decides You know what is the best fucking thing? I think that the best fucking thing for this 7-year-old child is to force him to observe this execution. A tacit approval of this fucking execution, this gross injustice, this disgusting display that they're putting in front of a 7-year-old. Okay. And he sits there and he's like, don't look away. Father will know if you do. No, he won't. Okay. Ned's not going to fucking see shit. He is in the middle of executing somebody. Okay. He's not thinking about Bran. Okay. He's not going to know. Okay. Bran could have looked away. You know what Yoren did when like Arya was about to see an execution? He covered her eyes and said, don't look. Okay. Because he knew that such a traumatic thing, is not for children, especially her own. I mean, it's her own father, but yes. But so here, Jon Snow forces a 7-year-old child to observe an execution, tying it to the approval of their father. And you sort of say, well, what good comes from it? So that Ned will go, yeah, what a strong 7-year-old I have who was able to look at the death of a man who could and be fine with it and be stoic. Oh yeah. I mean, first of all, that doesn't sound like Ned. It doesn't, like, Ned's personality does not care about that. Like he does not give a shit. And yet somehow like Jon Snow convinces Bran that is what his father is going to value. Like not having any emotion and like staring and looking at an execution of a man. Like it's wrong on so many levels. It's wrong in the sense of, one, it's being a tacit approval of this act. 2, forcing the kid to do it, which is a traumatic event. And then 3, communicating to him that this is something that his father values, which it's not. Going through 15 chapters of Ned, we know that he doesn't care about that kind of stuff. Okay? Had Bran looked away, he wouldn't have fucking cared. So, like, Jon, complete and utter sociopath. Imagine our world. Imagine that for some reason a 7-year-old has been brought to an execution, and a brother comes up to the child and is like, "Don't look away." You would be like, that child is a fucking psycho. You would never say, what a great caring thing that Jon Snow did there. No. If this happened in today's world, you'd be like, what a psycho. He is trying to force a 7-year-old to observe an execution. It's just screwed up. It's just screwed up. All right, now somebody put, Lord, God forbid we're all judged by our 14-year-old selves. I mean, Jon only makes it to 16. I mean, we don't have much to go on. I do admit he gets a lot better. Jon does get a lot better. He grows. Now, next, after that psychotic move of making a 7-year-old observe an execution, okay, they then find direwolves in the snow. Okay. Now, these direwolves in the snow, they see the adult mother direwolf. They know how big these things are going to grow. These are wolves. Okay. These are wolves. These are direwolves. They're worse than wolves. They're more vicious than wolves. So when we get to, he says, born with the dead, Okay. Robb, who of course is a child, says, we will keep these pups. So Robb, who's also, he's around Jon's age. Dumb idea, okay? These are vicious, vicious wolves. And when we actually look at their actions, like through the series, yeah, they're mauling people fucking right and left, okay? With the exception of Lady. But like when you think of like Shaggy Dog and what they've done to Tyrion over and over again out of like unprovoked, mauling Joffrey, all sorts of things. Like yes, we're in Arya's head, so it all seems fine, but they're just fucking mauling people. Even Robert, the drunken idiot king, is like these are no pets. So immediately Harwin, after saying we will keep these pups, he says, you cannot do that, boy. So immediately an adult is like, no, that's a bad idea. Harwin's correct here. Okay. And then he says, Rob is then says, I'll survive. I'll keep them. Small letter, 2 pups live. She'll have enough milk. And then Jon comes in, because first of all they're saying is Rob wants to keep them. And then they say, well, it's better that we kill them out of mercy. And he then says, no, Bran says. And he says, then Jon interjects and says, Lord Stark, there are 5 pups, 3 males and 2 females. What of it, Jon? You have 5 true-born children, 3 sons, 2 daughters. The direwolf is the sigil of your house. Your house was meant to have these pups, my lord. So it's not even a question. I mean, Rob introduces the idea that he was going to have one. But now Jon is introducing the idea that every Stark child is going to have one. Not just Rob. It would be dangerous enough for Rob to have one. But now he's introducing the idea that every child of the household should be raising a fucking direwolf. Rickon is 3 years old. They are giving a 3-year-old a direwolf. This idea is introduced by Jon Snow. And he totally plays on this like religious aspect to Ned. You can argue whether that's the thing that actually pushes Ned over, because Ned is actually not very religious and not superstitious. So it may be that it was Jon's like caring actions and things like that, but that pushed him over. But it is Jon Snow is the first one to come up with the idea that Rickon, a 3-year-old, should have this pup because the direwolves correspond to the children of House Stark. Okay, it is a level of recklessness that that would literally put someone in jail today. Okay, like if you found regular wolves in the regular wolf pups in the woods, and you gave the regular wolf pups 2 children to raise, including a 3-year-old child, you would be put in jail. Like that is child endangerment. It is so crazy that this is just accepted. And I understand that we've been with this story for so long, and it's a fantasy setting and it's a medieval setting, and we kind of forget that, wow, that's really nuts. It's really nuts that they decided to have children raise direwolf pups. And of course it goes on to just disaster. The direwolves are constantly attacking people, just constantly attacking people. It's rough. It's really, really rough. Now, the other one I'd also like to bring up is just how fucking reckless Jon is. But then we then get to Arya? Arya is 8 years old at the beginning of the story. And Jon Snow gifts her a secret sword. Now again, like, if you were to gift someone a sword, and they went on to hurt somebody, you would be liable. These are now court cases, right? That people give guns to children and they don't teach them how to use it with safety, and the children go off and end up killing people, and the parents have been found liable. This is now a thing, right? Now, What does Arya do? Well, if you remember, Arya accidentally kills a boy um, during the coup. She like panics and runs out, and then this like boy sees her, and he's like, "Hey!" and she stabs him. She kills a boy. That is completely like that is completely Jon's fault. Okay, he handed a fucking sword to an 8-year-old who then stabbed someone because she was a child. This is absolutely reckless. I mean, had you if anyone did this in the modern world, had you gave a sword to an 8-year-old child and then the other 8-year-old went and stabbed someone, Jon, like, he would be found liable. That is his fault. That death is on Jon. That little boy in King's Landing that Arya stabs is completely Jon Snow's fault. So now, many people might say, now those are probably the big three that I think are really quite horrible and of like Jon's evil, because most of his other stuff I actually think um, is fairly excusable. Like, some people will say, was it good to save Sam and have him take Chet's job? And I think that one, you could probably argue, no, Sam can read and Chet can't. Chet really was like not suited for that job. So I would on that one I would actually say, yeah, no. I mean, I understand that like Chet goes on and does psychotic things like his mutiny and stuff, but um, I would say that Jon's actions there probably acceptable. I mean, Chet was really, I mean, he couldn't read. He couldn't read, and he was trying to do Raven stuff with Aemon. And then, later on, I mean, trying to think of anything else. Like, Jon is then ordered to do a lot of things. He's then ordered north of the wall, and he's ordered to go off with Corn Halfhand, and he then chooses to save Ygritte. That seems like a morally good thing. Not killing these people, not killing her. And then he's put in a really bad situation with Corrin, where Corrin forces him to fight, and then he pretends to be part of the wildling invasion force. All of that, it's I would say that's given what Jon, like the situation Jon was put into, was it's hard to argue that him doing anything else, because it would have meant his own death, including, I would say, like, having his relationship with Ygritte. If he didn't have that relationship with Ygritte, he probably would have endangered himself. And so I kind of even think that, like, some people would say that him lying or him being dishonest to Ygritte is immoral. And it's like, well, he would have died had he not had a relation, had he not pursued a relationship with Ygritte. They would have been like, why are you not this willing and ready woman? Like, why aren't you sleeping with her? And so he kind of had to. And then once he gets to the wall, I mean, after that, I kind of agree with him about his actions for letting the wildlings through and wanting to defend the realm against the dead. You could argue that the Janis Slynt execution was probably too far. He probably didn't need to execute Janis Slynt. Janis Slynt was a piece of shit, but Jon didn't know he was the piece of shit that he was. So you could argue that Janis Slynt was a bit too far. But other than that, and then perhaps the torturing of Cregan Karstark is also one that, did Cregan Karstark really need to be in an ice cell, being tortured? That's as guilty as Cregan Karstark is of crimes. Torturing him in the ice cells is a bit far, and after that, that's about it. But I'm really saying that the big maybe some other people have a few other things that people um, uh, so that um, he had some other things that were maybe some other people will have ideas on various things that he did that were moral, but those are the big ones. He was really psychotic in a Game of Thrones. Anyway, um, all right, let's get to the comments here. Let's see if how many pearls are clutched for da, da, da. Bro, it's gonna be a Jon hater allegation. I just complimented Jon quite a bit on his Dance with Dragons actions. I don't think necessarily that Janos Slynt needed to be executed, nor Cregan Karstark tortured, but for the most part, I think that his actions in Dance with Dragons were morally correct. Maybe not smart, but morally correct. With the administration dismantling soft power like USAID and now actively going after disloyal top brass officials, where do you see this going for Cersei? Well, you have to remember that Cersei, if we're talking about Cersei's plot, you got to remember that Cersei, she has no moral code except for protecting herself. She is an egoist. The only morality that Cersei has is the advancement of Cersei. And so a lot of people kind of ask these questions, like, for instance, in the show when Cersei teamed up with the Ironborn, people kind of said, "Oh, would Cersei really do that?" They seem a little like low brow for her. And no, Cersei's going to use whoever is convenient for her to use. She does not care. Her morality is completely fluid. She likes bastards. She hates bastards. She calls people sluts. She calls people. I don't know if she ever calls people prudes, but she does whatever actions she wants and doesn't think anything of it. It's so. The point of it is, I'm saying, is that I do see Cersei teaming with the Ironborn because she has no moral code. And, perhaps we've seen this in the real world too, but some people have shifting moral code. They only care about themselves and they will justify anything. They will justify anything. I mean, sometimes you have to ask, like, if moral codes were flipped on groups, like, would that make a difference? No. Some people are just on certain teams. And Cersei is one of those people. She only cares about herself. Nothing matters. Nothing. She'll team up with the Faith if she wants. She'll team up with the Ironborn if she wants. She will team up with anybody as long as it advances herself. So I do see that Aegon is probably going to take King's Landing. And we know that, we've got visions from the House of the Undying. We have George saying that there's going to be a second Dance of the Dragons. It fundamentally relies on Aegon taking King's Landing. So the thing is where does Cersei go? Well, Cersei, she's got to retreat and escape to Casterly Rock. And she is going to probably team up with the Ironborn. They did that in the show. Also, when you look at the appendices of a game of the books, there's a lot of little connections between Ironborn houses and Westerland houses. I mean, yes, there's geography thing, but you don't find that with Ironborn houses and Northern houses. You don't find that with Ironborn houses and Reach houses. You only find it with Ironborn houses and Westerland houses. So it's an interesting thing. So yeah, that's where I see it. I see whatever pursuit, like whatever egoist pursuit of the self is going to happen until it just becomes self-destructive. Like Cersei is just going to get darker and darker and weirder, and because she has no principles to guide her. Man, so many people talking about like Jon and the return of Jon. Look, the one thing I've kind of learned is that any events can happen, and it can be good with good writing. People are really like obsessed with like these certain events happening. It's not really that important. Um, Serious question: are the tweets by the rape Melania guy going to hurt you? No, the rape Melania guy is no. Um, I don't know how to reply. Oh, look, it's David Reed's A Song of Ice and Fire. Don't know how to reply directly, but I'm sorry if I blew you off, and I'm not a super public person. I don't know. As such, I blew a lot of people sharing nice thoughts and sentiments with me. Oh, well, thank you. Thanks. No, David Reed's A Song of Ice and Fire. He went through the Herculean task of reading all of A Song of Ice and Fire, and it was oh, he was talking to Red TF Carmine, but he nonetheless the uh but yes, of course, technically speaking, David Reed's Song of Ice and Fire was violating copyright. Yes, but at the same time, it was a wonderful service for the rest of us. I and many others spent countless hours listening to your voice read A Song of Ice and Fire, and it existing on YouTube. I know it's just it was just a very nice thing. It was very convenient when you're out and you don't have like maybe your your MP4s around, and you can just go to YouTube and like listen. But I get it. I get it. I mean, there's a lot of things that are. I mean, I would say that like a lot of like the thing about copyright is that everything is illegal and everything is legal depending on what lawyer is behind it all. But because you hadn't monetized your stuff, but did it infringe on like how many people would have bought the audiobook but didn't because David was reading them? I mean, 10. I mean, maybe you could argue that like 10 people didn't buy the audiobooks. But even that, I mean, I don't know. It's not significant, it's not significant. If he knows what Ned does to boys that can't watch, then he's doing Bran a huge favor. Bran would be next on the block. Bran, I mean, Ned has done nothing like that. I mean, Ned is a big softy who in the end like doesn't believe in hurting children, and it's like he essentially kills himself to defend Joffrey. In the end, like that's how much of a softy Ned is. Like he should have arrested Cersei and her family, but because he wanted to protect Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen, and knew that and thought that perhaps Robert would hurt them, he risks his own life. So yeah, I don't think he would do anything to hurt Bran. I don't think he does. He would never do anything to hurt children. That's like the big thing about Ned, is that the one thing he really doesn't like is hurting children. So it's a weird thing about, I don't believe in hurting children, but I believe in like scarring them for life by bringing 7-year-olds to executions. It's very, very, very weird. Oh, best case George R. R. Martin answer for what is Avalon about. I mean, the best. So Trey and I talked about this a little bit, and we're worried that if that question gets asked, that in truth we worry that Avalon had a somewhat similar plot to A Song of Ice and Fire. So the one thing I'll say about George and the Thousand Worlds universe. So the as time went on with George and the Thousand Worlds universe, he did start doing more lore building and world building. So the final story that he wrote, The Glass Flower, contains a lot of history about what actually happened in the Thousand Worlds. He's worked it out, and that didn't happen for a long time. So George started writing. I think that what the hero comes out and writes the hero in 69, 70, and so he's writing in this universe for many, many years. And then he gets to Dying of the Light, which is 80, 81. And he establishes a lot of the world in Dying of the Light. But he doesn't really get into a lot of the detail until Glass Flower 2. And so as time went on, he became more of a lore builder. And so it's certainly possible that Avalon was going to be a lot more about lore. And the Trey's big other question, which is what do the Harangan mines look like? There was the idea that maybe Avalon was about the Harangan mines returning. And that when you look at the Thousand Worlds universe, it's been 1,000 years since the Harangan mines were around. Everyone's forgotten who they are. The technology isn't there to fight them anymore. Because you're still in an interregnum, right? Like the Thousand Worlds universe takes place 1,000 years after the Double War, but their technology at the Double War was well advanced, was well beyond what they had 1,000 years later. So it could be a similar situation where the plot of Avalon is the return of the Harangan mines, and it was essentially the same plot as A Song of Ice and Fire, with a bunch of different worlds warring and politics between them and whatever. That's the worst case scenario. Is he's just like, I can't tell you, or I forgot. The best case is it's not that, and he goes into like detail. Well, I had this idea about X, Y, and Z, and it wasn't fully fleshed out, but I was gonna have the protagonist be this, and they were gonna do this and this. I mean, that's the best case is that you just get a rough outline of what he'd planned and for that story. So. I mean, and the thing is, like, what do I think Avalon would be about? I don't know. I mean, other than that idea about that it was actually Ice and Fire with the return of the Harangan mines, I don't have any clue about what Avalon could be about. All we know is that Avalon was the pinnacle city, the pinnacle planet in the Thousand Worlds universe that's never went through an interregnum and has the highest technology. And so, it's while the rest of the galaxy went into a dark age. Like, that's a fascinating setting. I would love to know what went on. And I mean, we'll see. I mean, if George can explain it. I hope that he at least had like 100, 150 pages or something where he can kind of like start. But who knows if he had it outlined at all, or is he just starting out? But obviously, it was he got stuck enough that he just switched over to A Song of Ice and Fire. Who's going to tell Preston that George R. R. Martin didn't think this through and just wanted events to happen? Yeah, of course he did. Of course, that's the thing about the thing is, and I will say, as much as I'm saying that, like, morally speaking, when we actually stand back and say, like, can the morality of the time justify people's actions? No, logically that makes no sense. However, all of us do illogically give people a little out. We all have our racist grandpas and we go, well, They're of a different time. We all make that excuse for them, don't we? You know, even though there's no logic to it, like there's no reason we should give them an out. We do. Because that's, you know, if you give somebody an out for the time, then there's no morality ever. You're just like, oh, who's a good follower? You know, like no one can ever advance in morality because you're always fine where you are. So, but I understand that like illogically we all do it. And so George R. R. Martin is doing, he's trying to have his cake and eat it too. Because on the one hand, Dany is off freeing slaves in a world where slavery is the norm. And that's supposed to be a good thing. And Jon is complaining about the mistreatment of him, of bastards and stuff like that. And we're supposed to understand that. But at the same time, you're supposed to be like, well, this is a harsh world. Yes. And yeah. Children do grow up fast. So we have to like understand that in this world, children grow up fast. No, it's fucking horrible. Like, so, you know, he is trying to have his cake and eat it too, but we all admittedly do that. We're all flawed. Could Arya have won the War of the Five Kings with her 3 kills? Which 3 names would do the most for the Starks? Tywin, Joffrey, Balon. Could she have won the War of the Five Kings with... Well, I would say kind of no. In a sense that there's 5 kings. So 3 is not going to work. Also, there's a time limit. She kind of says like, I think Jaqen, does he say how, like when he's going to actually go through with it? Because that's the thing is you can, doesn't she say something like, you know, here we go. I knew it. Yeah. This is the issue. I would say the biggest issue. Speak the name and death will come on the morrow at the turn of the moon. A year from this day it will come. A man does not fly like a bird, but 1 foot moves and then another one, and one day a man is there and a king dies. So that's the biggest issue is how long it would take. So say, for example, she did do that. Say she chose Tywin, Joffrey, and Balon. Well, who's he going for first, you know? So is he going, he gets into King's Landing. That takes him several weeks to get to King's Landing, and then Joffrey dies. Then he's got to spend several weeks to cross back over and get to Casterly Rock, find Tywin, kill Tywin, then get on a boat, get to the Iron Isles, like find Balon. All right, so several months go by in that situation. But the thing is like once Joffrey dies, does that matter? Because Tommen then becomes king. Tywin, okay, take out Tywin. Well, Cersei is now regent. Like, there's always somebody picking up the mantle, right? Balon, you know, Balon is killed, and what Victarion would probably become, because Euron wouldn't get back in time. But you know, Victarion would be there. Are these characters any better? I mean, Victarion said specifically during the Kingsmoot that he was just going to do exactly the same as Balon. So I don't see how different those things are. So, you know, would he have had the plan to take the North? I mean, at that point they were already on their invasion, right? So Victarion would continue on, would hold the neck. You know, so all that kind of stuff happens. The thing is, Robb's plan to go back north is like he has a plan of like sneaking people from like through the swamps and then trying to take Moat Cailin from the north. It's unproven. It's and Catelyn calls it bold. It probably probably wouldn't work. Like so I don't see it working in the sense that all of these kings have and hands have just people that would succeed them and do the same things. Um, so I'm trying to think like what three kills would end the War of the Five Kings. I mean, a better choice would be one of these disruptor people, right? Like if you take out Littlefinger, but of course Arya doesn't know that Littlefinger is a horrible person. If you take out Littlefinger and Varys, you're going to have a much greater chance of success. Because you then actually have people that are willing to make peace. I mean, I think taking out Tywin is a force of chaos. So I think if you took out Tywin, Varys, and Littlefinger, I think the realm could heal on its own pretty pretty well. Like that's the big problem is that you have agents of chaos who don't want peace. So I think if you were to take out Tywin, because Tywin is psychotic in the sense that he cannot accept compromise, he cannot accept peace because he has been hurt. His reputation has been hurt on its own. So I think that if you were to take out Tywin and who would come in, and like if you could get Kevin as regent or hand before, that might work out. Um, Cersei's just paranoid. It's not that Cersei's against peace, but she would make peace and then she'd get paranoid about it and then break it. She wouldn't be bold in the sense of like I never want to have peace but yeah, I think like taking out Tywin, Littlefinger, and Varys, but she doesn't know that Littlefinger and Varys are as evil as they are. So, um, mm, 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 mm. Are they talking about like Arya in the stables when she killed the boy? No, it wasn't self-defense. She got scared by the boy, but he wasn't attacking her. There was no fucking self-defense there. Um we don't know anything about this boy. This boy um now I've got to like find the freaking um the situation with the boy. As if like like as if killing a little boy is justified. Like she couldn't just run away. But let's get into it. It's let's see exactly. Uh, so Ellen Payne, I'm trying to find this like idea when she kills the boy. A slender blade concealing needles in the folds. Where did she kill him? Here we go. Needle went through his leather jerkin. The boy dropped the pitchfork and made a soft noise. Let's go through this scene. All right. Maybe I'll be proved wrong. All right, so um, the animals were restless in the stalls. She crossed the back of the wagon. She must have been knocked down. Arya knelt in the dirt. There she is, a voice hissed close to her. Startled, Arya whirled. The stable boy stood behind her, smirk. Who are you? She don't know me, but I know her. Yes, that's the wolf girl. Help me saddle a horse, she pleaded. My father's the hand. He'll reward you. Father's dead. It's the queen who'll reward me. Come here, girl. Stay away. Her fingers closed around Needle's hilt. I said come. He grabbed her arm hard. Everything Syrio Forel taught her vanished in a heartbeat. In that instant, sudden terror, the only lesson she could remember was the one Jon Snow had given her. She struck him with the pointy end, driving the blade upward with a wild, hysterical strength. Needle went through his leather jerkin. The white flesh of his belly came out between his shoulder blades. The boy dropped the pitchfork and made a soft noise, something between a gasp and a sigh. His hands closed the blade. Oh, gods, he moaned. His under tunic began to redden. Take it out. When she did, he died. Okay. You don't think that maybe she didn't need to kill him? She could have stabbed him in the foot. She could have stabbed him in the leg. Like, no, she goes right for the fucking gut. Right? Like, self-defense, like he had no weapon because he drops the pitchfork. He had no weapon on her. He grabs her by the arm and she fucking kills him. Okay, that's an escalation of force here. She didn't need to kill him. Had she had like just a regular piece of metal, she could have hit him on the arm or whatever. But I don't see how it's necessary. Like, you guys, it's like, man, you guys will all justify the killing of children so quickly. like Jesus. If you can't use the excuse of the society they live in, if you're going to compare it to our society, well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Our society is also fucked up. That's the idea, is that like the moral codes that you can compare them to are going to be higher than the ones of the society they live in. Um, mm, mm, mm. Let's see here. Torture. Yeah, I'm talking about Jon Snow tortures a man. He throws him in the ice cells. But he did train her. He told the point of the. Oh, just watch Generation Kill. Your friend was fantastic. Teenage dirtbag. I knew you talked about it before, but can you recap some of your takeaways from the show, book, or the Iraq War in general? Um, yeah, Generation Kill is really fascinating because it's based on a real book called Generation Kill, by a Rolling Stone reporter who embeds with the reconnaissance Marines. And at the time, they wanted the fall of Iraq to happen so quickly that they were assigning the reconnaissance Marines with warfighting, which is crazy. So it was this, and so he is on the front. This rock and roll. This they called him rock and roll. It was his call sign. But this reporter was on the front lines of this reconnaissance group who is warfighting and taking cities, which is just unheard of because they wanted to invade Iraq so quickly. And yeah, I think the show is incredible. I think it's the best. And I've talked to many Marines about this, and they agree that it is 100% the best portrayal of Marines that exists on film is Generation Kill. just not only in the sense of like their lingo and how things are done, but also the diversity of who you end up in a platoon with. Like there are really crazy people that like are like that. There's psychotic people like the Captain America guy, and there's you know really weird guys that join for their own reasons, like Fruity Rudy and stuff, and you get all types. Um, and so I have people say that like my friend PJ was a little scrawny, like that boot camp in general will beef you up more than he could possibly, like he couldn't, you wouldn't be able to be that scrawny to be in the Marines. Like they beef you up enough. But otherwise, but personality wise, all these people existed. um, but yeah, that's the really interesting thing about it is just um, the kind of the they were they were they were told to do something beyond their job. Um, None of them were trained for this. They were reconnaissance, and they shouldn't have been doing what they were doing. There's even moments where they're supposed to like do peacekeeping and stuff like that. And that's actually one of the, if I were to say like one of the biggest mistakes of the Iraq War was probably like, besides invading in general, but if you want to say like the United States is really good at war fighting, but many of our allies are much better at peacekeeping. And the United States became better at peacekeeping over time, don't get me wrong, but certainly in 2003, they weren't trained to do peacekeeping, which was why having allies and approval and everything was necessary and needed, because you need the European allies, because the European allies are better at peacekeeping um, than, or even even other, not even just Europe. Like keep in mind, a lot of peacekeeping is done by Pakistani forces, Egyptian forces, things like that. If you can get other Middle Eastern allies, you can do peacekeeping. But the fact that like we didn't have enough allies to do peacekeeping once we invaded and conquered Iraq was really a problem. Um, and that's yeah. Had we had more allies, I mean, it was a bad idea. Probably shouldn't have invaded Iraq in the first place. but um, but I think a big mistake on why the United States was stuck in a quagmire for so long, and in many ways still is that we didn't have our allies with us. But and there's definitely some scenes in Generation Kill where they try to do like little peacekeeping things, and it's just these are reconnaissance Marines. Um, Thoughts on Benjen Stark's second life being Mormont's crow? Yeah, I understand this is a recent video by um, Quinn the GM, and it's not that I don't agree that thematically answering, say, one mystery with another and having Benjen be important and it having impact um, is an important thing, but I don't think it logically works. Like, we get the Vermeer Six Skins chapter, and we hear all about how warging and skin changing happens, and you could argue that, okay, Benjen's a warg, but a skin changer is at least a much stronger, more talented warg. And so you'd I mean, I go what I suppose on the other hand, um, Bloodraven does say that ravens are fairly easy to skin change, but you know, he doesn't have any practice at it. There's like Bran or Arya or Jon, they all have moments of darkness. They have third eye awakening periods. They're surrounded. They're around the direwolf all the time. The problem with the Benjen thing is he's a ranger. He's actually not at Castle Black that much. And why would he try or choose to skin change a raven versus a dire wolf or anything else, or a regular wolf or anything else? It's just kind of strange logistically that he would choose that second life, and when he has no history that we know of skin changing. Like you know, if there was some sort of background where, or some sort of foreshadowing of like, oh, Benjen, and he spent a lot of time with the birds, or it's Benjen, you know, he knows about the wolves and things like, but he doesn't, you know, it would be out of nowhere. That Benjen was in the Raven. And like I say, it's not like I don't like the idea of like Benjen being important and it being like a big significant thing, but I would have to say, like, I would have to think like someone with who is not practiced, has no muscle memory, of skin changing, all of a sudden pulling off the second life. That'd be pretty hard, you know. I mean, Arel got it, but he has that eagle for years. Is Benjen? If Benjen was walking around with the Raven, that's one thing. If it were Benjen's Raven, maybe I would accept that Benjen went everywhere with this Raven, and then he left it behind with Mormont, and he died. Maybe, but it's not Benjen's Raven. It's Mormont's Raven. I mean, Mormont skin changing it is more of a thing. Also, I'm trying to think. Does the Raven act funny even before Benjen dies? Let me check on this. Like, yeah, I mean, the Raven exists even before, and is saying weird stuff even before. I'm trying to think when does Benjen go missing in Jon 3? The Raven isn't introduced until Jon 3. Yeah, Benjen leaves in Jon 3, but he's not declared missing yet. So he's not dead yet in Jon 3. He had just left. And so the weird Raven is already introduced there in Jon 3. So as fun as that is, I mean, it's a fun theory, but Benjen in there the whole time, I don't know, we just don't have that. I mean, the whole thing about the direwolves being around the kids to like bring out their minds, and then they're in the dark. I mean, Arya doesn't start. I'm trying to think. Well, Bran starts getting his wolf dreams immediately. I guess all the Stark children start having their dreams immediately, but or at least after the wolves are found. They don't have dreams before. So, Oh, was Dantos originally intended to have a larger role? Sansa thinks about him way too much in class for me to think he was going to end that way. It's that's a good question. I mean, I do agree with you that the setup for Sansa's escape is really fucking long. It's 2 books to finally get to Sansa's escape. Like Dantos is sitting there, like talking to Sansa about how he's going to whisk her off for 2 full books. It goes on for way fucking too long. You're absolutely right. I agree with you. Um, but was Dantos originally intended to have that role? It's tough because like Sansa was originally supposed to have switch sides and have Joffrey's child and choose the Lannisters over her own family because she has a child with Joffrey. And at least through a Game of Thrones, we kind of see that setup happening, where she keeps siding with them, almost like unbelievably so. Like they killed your fucking direwolf, they killed Lady. Um, you're sitting there hating your sister over it when it was very clearly like like Joffrey and Cersei, like over like very clearly Cersei's doing, and yet she keeps forgiving Cersei. It's almost unbelievable. But then quite quickly, she decides that um, they're horrible. That they're horrible people after all. After Ned's killed, she quite quickly decides, no, I was a fool throughout a Game of Thrones. So, like, what was the next plan? Was the next plan for her to then leave? I mean, that's what we start hearing about Dantos leaving, Dantos whisking her off for 2 books, and then somehow it finally happens. But it turns out it was Littlefinger the whole time. Um, he was the one behind it all. It wasn't Dantos. It was Littlefinger. Uh which I mean, I guess that's a little. It's kind of like Rise of Skywalker. You thought that this guy was somebody. No, it was the Emperor the whole time. It was Littlefinger the whole time. Which I suppose Littlefinger's interest in Sansa is set up in a Game of Thrones, so what does work? Hmm. No, I mean, I do think that after the change, that once Dantos introduces this idea that he's going to whisk her away, that was going to be George's plan, but it just kept taking a long time. And so I think Sansa's plot going nowhere for 2 books is just a function of the fact that like George wanted to. I mean, he wanted it all in a Game of Thrones, and then he had to split it to 2 books, and then he split it to 3. He didn't. I think it was. It's just. I think Sansa's story is just the function of, my God, like it's taking me too long to get to this point, and Sansa's story needs to catch up. Um, and just that's about it. Like, like did we need Bran journeying for 2 books? Well, no, but everything George uses travel to either kill time and have plots catch up with each other. Um, right? Because I'm trying to think of all of these different things that, like, take Arya and the Red Wedding. One of the big complaints about Arya is that she wanders for 2 books, Clash of Kings and A Storm of Swords, before anything happens to her, right? She then has the Red Wedding. But the thing is, the Red Wedding happens, and then she's out. She's out pretty quick. I think she has maybe two more chapters. I'm trying to think. Like, Red Wedding is what? Catelyn. Red Wedding happens in It's like one of these yeah, okay. Catalan 7. So Arya is wandering for 10 fucking chapters until the Red Wedding, and then she gets 3 more. So it's sort of like Arya is just kind of killing time until the Red Wedding, and then that's our moment to have her advance. So I think it was kind of a similar situation with Sansa, that she's waiting for events to occur. You know, it's like, oh, I know plot wise I want her to flee, but I can't have her flee until the Purple Wedding, but I can't have the Purple Wedding until the Red Wedding, and all these things happen. So she's spinning. If Bran is a 1 in a million case, shouldn't it be like a dozen more Brans around Westeros? Yeah, absolutely. But and we have Varamir Sixskins as an example. I mean, Varamir Sixskins is insanely powerful. Insanely powerful. Perhaps if he had similar experiences to Bran, he maybe he would have been able to do the same things. But Bran not only has 1 in a million genetics, but he also has very specific actions that happen to him. Like, he goes into a coma and spends all of that time in darkness, and has his eye awaken some there, and then he spends time in the crypts for several days, again in darkness, and has that happen to him. So there's and then he gets to the cave and has more training. So yeah, there's definitely many more Brans. There's definitely many more people that are as genetically significant as Bran, but they don't necessarily have the same opportunity, and events happen to them as well. I listened to an interesting podcast about what makes an Olympic athlete. And the interesting thing about it is we always kind of think like, okay, we kind of understand that to be a good athlete, it's a function of genetics, and it's a function of how hard you work. Yeah, sure. But then really on top of that, there's a massive luck factor. And a luck factor people don't really think about. A lot, we're told when we're young, practice makes perfect. And it's like, well, no, not on like this like exceptional level. Like, you need to have genetics and massive training. But then the luck factor is like stuff like, did you happen to not get injured at a certain time? Because injuries are a matter of luck. If you get injured at a certain time, you're done. Your career's over. You will never make it. Even though you had the perfect genetics and you worked your ass off, you got hurt. Or another is like, there's only a certain number of coaches that exist that can bring you to the Olympics. And so if your coaching schedule, like if that coach isn't available to train you at a certain time, like they're already booked, or they exist in a different country, or you don't have the money to hire them. Like, there's those factors of luck. Like, are you available to get that coach? And like, in the right amount of time for this and this competition in order to advance you to this and this competition and all sorts of things. So there's all these other factors, massive luck factors when it comes to producing like the best of the best athletes, like luck factors that no one thinks about. Everyone's like, oh, if you just train and if you have the right genetics, like, no, like there is a lot of chance. There's a lot of chance. Or maybe you get, you don't get along with that coach, like or whatever, there's a lot of these things. So it's the same with Bran. Like, Bran has like, yeah, really great genetics. No doubt. We're told that. but he also had the experience of falling from the tower and for some reason not dying and being in the coma and then hiding in the crypts and being in the darkness and then getting dragged north of the wall and being trained with werewood paste and trees and all the sort of stuff to be where he is. And had that happened to Vermeer Sixskins, like maybe it would, who knows? But absolutely, you know. Um, have you seen Lawrence of Arabia? I just saw it as wild. What's your thoughts on someone who has spent time in the Middle East? Lawrence of Arabia is a beautiful, beautiful movie. Probably one of the best movies of all time. It is a great, great movie. Um, from what I've heard, it's not actually very historically accurate with the life of Lawrence, but there are some very funny, interesting aspects to it that that are kind of correct. One of the lines there's a scene where Peter O'Toole sits down with Alec Guinness. Alec Guinness is playing King Faisal, and um, and Faisal says to Lawrence, why do you Westerners why do you like the desert? And Peter O'Toole, I mean Lawrence, he says something really weird. He's like I really like the desert because it's very clean. It's the weirdest answer, but I love that. Like Faisal's answer back is brilliant because he's like, we Arabs, we hate the desert. We like gardens. And it's so it's so true. Like people in the Middle East, when they want to go on vacation, they're like, where are some nice green locations where I can go to see some green? They love green. Like the fact that like Lebanon is so green. They think of Lebanon being the most beautiful place in the world because there's some high hills, some mountains where they can go to the forest and like see trees. And they're like, oh my gosh, this is the most beautiful thing ever. So like for people in the Middle East, like it's true, like they fucking love gardens and they love green things because they're just like, oh my God, it's just so barren and desert. Like, why would you like the desert? I live in the desert. It sucks. I like green. Like, like fucking love that scene. Um, there's also a really cool scene at the end where um, he goes and he's goes down to Aqaba and he's gotten all of the men to go off to battle, and they're marching through this canyon. It's Wadi Rum, which is this place in Jordan. Obviously, they didn't march through Wadi Rum, but nonetheless, they're marching through these canyons, and the women come out of the canyons and they start ululating, zagarit, and it's you usually do zagarit like during weddings and such, and other joyous occasions. So it's not exactly like, it sounds like a battle cry, like they're coming out in zagarit, like doing zagarit, but like it's still a nice moment, that something that's so important to specifically Levantine culture, and how important zagarit is to like Levantine Arabs, like is in that movie. And like it's really a brilliant kind of scene. And any movie with Omar Sharif is of course like one of the greats. I mean, he's the great most beloved like actor in the Middle East probably of all time, and he's just brilliant in the movie too. So um it's it touches, the movie itself touches on some important ideas. They're ideas that have perhaps have faded, about pan-Arabism. Nasser really tried to push the idea that there was like an Arab identity. And in the movie, Lawrence of Arabia is like pushing this same sort of idea on Faisal, saying like, you're going to fight against the Ottomans because you're not Ottoman, you're Arab, and keep in mind that like when the movie is made and attitudes of now of at the time Nasser being around, you know, and the movie being made, like it wasn't necessarily really accurate to the time, and it's not accurate today. I mean, Pan-Arabism is very dead as a concept. You know, like there's like national unity is a much stronger notion than Arab unity in any respect. There's no there's very little in the idea that there could ever be a pan-Arab state. Like that was just such a dead idea, you know. And you know, and like the idea that like you would go to war for another Arab country, like no government would do that. They, you know, every nation considers themselves their own, and there's probably less now Arab unity than say European unity. Like European unity is much stronger than Arab unity. But so they, you know, there's a lot of interesting things about the movie. I think it's great, but you know, you got to remember it's a product of the time and it is fiction. But it's still, it's a fucking great movie. Fucking great movie. Everyone should watch Lawrence of Arabia. It's beautiful. Ned pulls up quick to wind the cat that Rickon can't be scared forever. Yeah, I love it. I love that line. He's like, Rickon, he's like, Catelyn's like, Rickon's 3. Winter is coming. You're like, oh my God. Oh my God, Joe. like this is, let me see here. Oh, what did he say? Yeah, that's it. This is the line. Oh my God. Oops, or wrong one. Is it preview? Here we go. Where are the children in the kitchen arguing about the names for the wolf pups? Arya's already in love. Sansa's charmed and gracious, but Rickon is not quite sure. Is he afraid? A little, she admitted. He's only 3. He must learn to face his fears. He will not be 3 forever, and winter is coming. Like, what? Your 3-year-old child is scared of a direwolf? And he's like, well, he's got to learn to face his fears. Like, what? Yes, the Catelyn agreed. The words gave her a chill. It's like what is wrong with you people? He's 3 years old. Oh my gosh. The man died well, I'll give him that. I was glad for Bran's sake. You would have been proud of Bran. You'd have been proud of Bran. Like a psychopath, he didn't show any emotion when I executed someone needlessly. Like, oh my God. Like, looking back on this, like, man, fucking so, like, absolute psychopaths. Absolute, utter psychopaths. Oh, man. Do you think they'll ever collect the Thousand World Stories in one collection? I did. I already did years ago. Years ago, I had it floating around. But yeah, no, there's collections that have there's collections out there that have all, like, nearly everything George wrote that exists. But yeah, no, I mean, I had collected the Thousand Worlds at one point. I have to find it for you if you're really interested. But yeah, some of them were really hard to find, but because they were out of print. But eventually I ordered them all on the and got them, collected them all. But yes, there is a collection out there. Um, yeah, the one place that got spared from the interregnum sounds like Asimov's Foundation. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reuse of uh, of um, the sci-fi ideas. Mm, mm, mm. Kevin survives and will share all of Varys' lies about about Fagon. The Tyrells will abandon Tommen to join Aegon. Otherwise, Varys' monologue is pointless. Oh, Varys' monologue. Well, yeah, a lot of people make a lot of Varys's monologue because, like, why it shows that, like, at least Varys thinks that, or it implies that Varys heavily implies that Varys thinks that Aegon's real, that he is the legitimate son of of Rhaegar, um, because there's no reason to lie to Kevin. Now, some people say, well, maybe he doesn't want to lie in front of all those kids, or he doesn't want, or maybe he's lying in front of all those kids, or maybe he's lying in front of the Raven, or something like that, or maybe he thinks somebody's watching him with a glass candle. You can make a lot of arguments that he's not really alone, but I mean, obviously, in a literary sense, like, it's for our sake, it's for the audience's sake that this information is being given. It's it's exposition. There's a lot of places in the story where people give exposition uselessly, and it's like, well, yeah, I know that material. Why are you saying that? Like, what? Like, he is your brother, like that kind of stuff. You're like, no one talks like that, but they do in literature and such, because, like, exposition has to happen. So in that sense, like, Varys, the audience are viewing him, so of course he's going to be saying things. So if you look at it, like, logically speaking, like, is it, can Varys still be lying? Yeah, sure. I mean, he could be. It's one could, is he being truthful? Maybe, um, but do I think Kevin survives? No. He got shot with a crossbow. He's not surviving. He's not surviving. Plus, he gets stabbed by all the little kids afterwards. So he gets shot with a crossbow and stabbed by all the little kids. No, he's not. He's not surviving. He's not surviving. Um, Not to mention the fact that, like, with the exception of Chet, who makes it a little bit longer past the prologue to die off screen, like, it's the prologues and epilogues have people die, so I think Kevin, yes, he's dead, but is Varys lying? I mean, let's bring it up. Let's bring it up, because everyone. Let's see here. Dance with Dragons, uncheck all. What do you say? Aegon is real? No. Aegon is here? Forget the... Aegon is... What is he? I'm trying to find... I don't know. Do I have to bring up the... Fine. I was trying to do it on the search, but I'm not finding the right thing. So I'll bring up Dance. Okay. Snow finally falling. Okay, here we go. All right, so people make a lot of this final speech. And oh, he is here. Okay, he says, doubt, division, mistrust will eat the ground beneath your boy king, whilst Aegon raises his banner above Storm's End, and the lords of the realm gather around him. And he says, Aegon, dead, he's dead. No, he is here. Aegon has been shaped for rule since before he could walk. He has been trained in arms, as befit a knight. But that was not the end of his education. He reads, writes, he speaks several tongues. He studied history, law, poetry. Sept is instructed in the mysteries of faith since he was old enough to understand them. He's lived with the fisher folk, worked with his hands, swum in the rivers, mended the nets, learned to wash his own clothes. He can fish and cook and bind up a wound. He knows what it's like to be hungry, to be hunted, to be afraid. Tommen is taught that kingship is his right. Aegon knows what kingship is a duty, and the king must put his people first and rule for them. Now, so why is he giving his James Bond speech here on revealing everything? Well, obviously he's doing it for the audience, like obviously. But you could say that he just wants to like reasons why Varys could be lying. Okay. He wants to torture Kevin. And the next thing he's like, oh, I'm sorry you're suffering, and here I'm standing like a silly old woman. Time to make an end of it. No, he wanted him to suffer. Like, obviously he's torturing him. So, like, you could say that this was just a torture for him. That he wants his last things that he ever sees is that this guy is going to return from the dead, and everything that Kevin's worked for his entire life is going to be destroyed. Could be that. Could be that Varys believes it. You know, maybe Varys doesn't know that Aegon is a Blackfire or something else, you know. Or maybe, you know, he's so committed to the idea that what people believe makes the truth that he is telling himself a lie, you know, so that he himself begins to start believing it, you know. That for some sort of psychological sense, like, you know, in a way of like Littlefinger says to Sansa, like, you need to pretend to be Elaine, like, at all times, even in your mind. Varys could be doing the same thing. He needs to pretend that Aegon is real, even in his mind. So I mean, there's a million reasons why he could still be lying, or he could be telling the truth. I'm of course of the belief that it doesn't really matter. You know, that the Aegon story is probably being told differently to different people, and that it doesn't really matter. But is the Varys monologue pointless? Well, it's not pointless in the sense that we, the audience, are fucking here, you know. And like I say, it's not pointless in the sense you could argue that he's torturing Kevin. You could argue that he needs to maintain the illusion for his little birds, because his little birds might leak information, you know, or that the Raven is watching, or that a glass candle is watching, or a million other things, you know. So, the monologue is for the children. Yeah, it could be. Do you think Jaqen had 3 peeps in mind when he offered? Huh. The other idea is that Jaqen is 100% bluffing. He's trying to impress Arya. He got off pretending to be a genie. Yeah, I don't know. You know, like, I wish Jaqen, of course, is like, Jaqen in A Clash of Kings is, of course, a real mystery because he acts so differently from the House of Black and White that we run into in A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons. It's just kind of almost strange that all of a sudden death pays for life, and you saved 3 people, so I have to kill 3 for warg and biter and whatever. It doesn't. And then it's like, do I know this person? Well, I can't kill this person if I know them. Like later, these rules come in that seem to have nothing to do with Jaqen. Um, it's I wish I could make sense of Jaqen H'ghar in a Clash of Kings, but do I? Based on everything we have, do I think Jaqen had 3 people in mind? Um, let's go back. Does he want? Does he try to? Does he try to influence her at all? Oh, it's not. I'm in the wrong book here. Gotta open my Clash. Open my Clash. Arya Clash. Moon's turn, yeah. It says the red god is due. This is due. That's the weird thing, is he's like the red. The other weird thing is that he actually says the red god. That everyone's like, is he a follower of R'hllor? Because the other thing that doesn't make sense. Like, why is he talking about the red god? Because then you're like, well, maybe he means the red god has his due because they needed to be given to fire, but he doesn't kill them with fire. He pushes one off a wall and has dogs attack another guy. Only death may pay for a life. The girl took 3 in their place. Speak the name. Take me to Riveron. 3 lives. You shall offer me no more. And then she says, and that's it. Like, he doesn't even influence her at all. A man pays his debts. A man owes 3. 3 lives. Okay. The woman in the niche. There's always gonna. She goes to Chiswick, right? Chiswick's her first. And she goes up and she goes for Chiswick. And that's it. So he doesn't influence her at all. Like, he doesn't. I don't know if he had anyone in mind. I mean, I suppose you could argue that he hears her with like whispering her names, and that he thinks that that's pretty good, that those are pretty easy ones that he could do. But um I don't think he ever says, hey, how about this person? He just says, he just says three. So I mean, he shouldn't have anyone in mind, like he doesn't try to influence her if he does. So I don't think so. I'm trying to remember. For some reason, the show, I seem to believe that like there might have been something in the show where he says that he could kill Joffrey or something. I don't know if I'm misremembering, but it's certainly, I don't see anything in the book like that. But Occam's Razor is a giant ice wall built by medieval feudal shit kickers or actual spacefaring ice wizards as a crib for their newborns. Giant ice wall built by medieval feudal shit kickers or actual spacefaring ice wizards as a crib for their newborns. I mean, that's a funny one. Occam's like, which is simpler, which is the most like, I don't know. The thing about Occam's Razor is Occam's Razor. People bring this up a lot with like debating books and stuff, and you're like, look, Occam's Razor doesn't apply to literature and stories because unusual things happen in stories all the time. People come back from the dead, for example, in stories all the time, but people never come back from the dead in the real world. And things like that. So Occam's Razor, like giant ice wall built by medieval people. Okay, well, obviously, like they don't have the technology to do it. So they had to have been more advanced in some way in the past, either technologically or magically or something. But actual spacefaring ice wizards as a crib for their newborns, yes. Like, you'd think if you had the ability to build a wall the size of a wall, that you would have the ability to go into space. Like we have the ability to go into space, and we can't, like our human society right now can't build a wall like that. So it does, I will grant you that Occam's Razor, that the ice wizards with a crib for the newborn probably does make more sense than, because if you say like, who has the technology to build a wall like that? Well, you would have to be a spacefaring society. Like that's just it's way too huge and massive, and the technology needed to do that is just outrageous. And if you had that technology, you certainly have the technology to leave orbit and go to other planets. Like it's just something now, of course, you could argue that the speed of light still applies, and you can't really get out of your own solar system and things like that. But do you still think the Malisters killed Balon? I think it makes the most sense logically, but on reread, I would say that the one thing that gives me pause is that A Storm of Swords was written very fast, and the Ghost of High Heart prophecies are simple as fuck. Like there, and that like, so it's a little weird. I would say that the biggest piece of evidence for it being a faceless man is that the other prophecies for the Ghost of High Heart are simple as fuck. and you like recognize them immediately. And so if they're all simple as fuck, shouldn't the man without a face being a faceless man like be simple as fuck? Because it is, right? There's no, which is unusual, because the other prophecies that we find in our story, whether it be the House of the Undying or Patchface or Melisandre, they're difficult. There a lot of them are really difficult. Some, like, no one has figured out Patchface. Patchface's shit just makes no fucking sense. And every, like, you know, or you could say Quaithe stuff. Like, people still argue about it. Like, we kind of have most of Quaithe, but there's still some elements that might not be 100%. And then, you know, Melisandre's visions, like, you know, I think I figured it out with the Battle of the Blood and things like that, but I think a lot of people still argue about it. House of the Undying stuff, people still argue about who is the gray shadow breathing, or gray stone beast breathing shadow and stuff like that. People make these arguments, but the Ghost of High Heart's visions, they're just really lame. They're lame in that they're so fucking easy, right? And so let me see here. Like, when you get like, when you get to, I mean, look at this. Like, I dreamt the old gods stir and won't let me sleep. I dreamt I saw a shadow with a burning heart butchering a golden stag. Like, obviously that's fucking, you know, Stannis's shadow, like killing Renly. Like, fucking obviously. Like, that's not even, that's like, 3-year-old Rickon could figure that out. I dreamt a man without a face waiting on a bridge that sway and swung. Okay, we're gonna, that's the one that's on his shoulder approached a drowned crow with seaweed in his wings. I dreamt a roaring river with a woman that was a fish, dead as she drifted, and red tears on her cheeks when she opened her eyes. Oh, she woke with terror. Like, obviously that's Cat, right? So, like, they're so fucking easy that it's a little strange when one would be difficult, that one is tricky, you know, the man without the face. So, yeah, logically speaking, but again, literature isn't logical. So, but like, logically speaking, I think the Malisters killing Balon, I think it's a better story. I think it makes more sense. I think when you logistically think about Euron hiring a faceless man, that makes no sense. How is he getting the faceless man there at the certain amount of time? Like, when aren't they in Iron Islands are in isolation at this point? How is he getting there? How is the faceless man how is he making it all the way up to Bravos to hire a faceless man to then have the faceless man make it there in time in the windows? I think the Malister stuff, there was a whole bunch of wasted time talking about the Malister Greyjoy rivalry. And there's some suspicious stuff where people are following around Theon and stuff like that. Like, all of that I think makes a better story and is more logical. However, because The Storm of Swords is a fucking fast written book, in many ways a very sloppy book at parts, and the fact that like the rest of the prophecies are the easiest prophecies in the whole book, it would be really odd to have a difficult prophecy in the middle of it. That's the only thing. Like, that's the thing where I'm just like, he was probably, you know, and George was probably thinking a faceless man fucking killed him, you know. But hired by Balon, hired by Euron. And then in the show, they just had Euron kill him anyway. So Euron's responsible nonetheless. So, you know, what I think makes sense in the text and what's there, like when I'm thinking about what a writer is actually doing. Um, so those are two different things. So probably in the fanfic we'll have the Malisters do it, just because it's much more interesting than a fucking faceless man that makes no sense. The ice wall was built by ice. Oh yeah, I mean, ice doesn't even. I don't. They don't even. Ice doesn't even take care of the wall. Ice can't get the wall is the southern border is dealt with border patrol, and ice is supposed to deal with once you're further inside. I understand you're making a joke, obviously, but like, the ice isn't supposed to be part of the wall. They're supposed to be interior, but could it be built by ice itself? Ice itself found its way to build the ice monster. Maybe the cold itself. These geckos. Bear down. Oh, I forgot what. Sorry, I had to. What? I forget whatever joke this was for. I've missed it. I'm sorry. But thank you. Oh, still self-defense to me. This is the thing, is like, as if she isn't. This is back with the Arya thing, as if she isn't a little girl. Yeah, she's a little girl. She shouldn't have been given a fucking sword. The argument was that Jon is being psychotic by giving a weapon to a little girl. Okay, that's the argument. Okay, so like the argument is not like that I'm not like a child isn't going to make a mistake. Children make mistakes. The argument is, because children cannot be trusted with weapons, you shouldn't fucking give children weapons, because people end up fucking getting killed. That's the argument. She shanked a narc. I mean, that little boy doesn't know what's going on. He thinks there's a coup going on. He doesn't, no one's told him, no one sat him down. No one sat that little boy down and explained to him that actually Joffrey's a bastard and that Stannis is the true king and that Ned has a legitimate reasons for his coup. Like, no one sat that little boy down. Poor little boy. Everyone's like, fucking narc deserved it. You've no, somebody's trying to overthrow the throne. Poor little kid. Garrett never saw the others. He stayed back with the horses while Will and Waymar went ahead. Well, we don't know what happened to Garrett. We know he was a raving loon, is all we know. So I'd say it's implied that he saw the others because he's a raving madman. So so I wouldn't say that he deserted without seeing the others. I would say that something made him go nuts. So nuts that a month later, however long it took him to get all the way back to the wall and then all the way down to Winterfell, he's still fucking going crazy over it. So I don't think it makes much sense for him to have not seen the others. Because why else is he a fucking raving madman? Sansa's classic narcissist. Well, it's true. I mean, she's supposed to be. She's supposed to be, especially in a Game of Thrones. she's supposed to be, you know, an idiot because she believes, because she's a fucking into fantasy. That's the whole thing, right? She loves fantasy, so she's supposed to come across as a fucking idiot. Um, mm, mm. um, let's have John's next chapter be talking to Benjen and Ghost, and Benjen fades away. Oh, and that Benjen went into Ghost as a second life. Um, see, that's the other. So the other thing is, when Varamir is choosing his second life host, he's in the vicinity of who he's fucking geckos. He's in the vicinity of the people he tries to rest. I mean, first in Thistle, and then in the Wolf at the end. They're in the vicinity. So if we're talking about like Benjen having a second life in Mormont's Raven, he would have to get all the way back close to the wall and then get out, you know, if the wall might be a barrier, get through the barrier of the wall with his soul to get into the Raven. Now with Ghost, Ghost is actually, admittedly, you can do anything with Ghost because Ghost is missing for all of the Storm of Swords. So Ghost can go wherever he wants and then get Benjen's soul and then come back. So there's more possibilities with Ghost because we have some time unaccounted for with Ghost. But he would still have to go to Benjen's death position wherever Benjen dies. I mean, what would be funny is that like Benjen's walking back to the wall and Ghost just fucking mauls him, and then he second lifes himself into Ghost, his murderer. But that's possible. I mean, it's possible that Benjen could be in Ghost because we don't know where Ghost was, and we don't know if Benjen died or where Benjen died or whatever. So that's all possible. R.I.P. Benjen. Spent a lot of time with birds. Benjen is Quaithe. That would be funny as well. Benjen is Dario. Benjen is Jaqen. I'm Spartacus. Sansa isn't the brightest bulb, to be fair. No, but she's a little girl. All the children are dumb. Like, let's be fair. All the children are dumb, and most of the adults too. I mean, Jon didn't see that assassination coming, and that was pretty obvious. Ned, complete and utter idiot. Let's, you know, a lot of people are pretty dumb in the story. Do you think the others can send dreams prophecies in order to influence events? Bloodraven can do it through the trees. I don't see why they couldn't. Huh. You're right. I don't see why they couldn't. I mean, honestly, like if I'm accepting the I mean, keep in mind that like I'm accepting the premise that there's crossover between telepathic abilities. So when we have somebody like Arya has the ability to. Arya is strangely chosen to be a faceless man. And I would say that it's too big of a coincidence that she just happens to be chosen to be a faceless assassin and has genetic predisposition to be as a telepath. Like that's fucking crazy coincidence that she gets this double whammy. So I would say that she was chosen because she they recognize that she's a telepath and that's going to help her in her face changing abilities. Um, and I would say that like so we've got a crossover there. Um, and we see with Bran this crossover of if you can warg, you can be like Blood Raven. If you can warg really easily, skin change really easily, you can send visions. You know, so um, and Blood Raven seems to have been, keep in mind, Blood Raven seems to have been sending visions prior to even getting in the werewood net, considering that Daemon Targaryen 2, Daemon Blackfire 2 was receiving visions. Now, I mean, unless they're not from Bloodraven, but like it seems like Bloodraven was setting him up by sending him visions. So I do think that if you have telepathic abilities, you have the ability to send visions. You have the ability to talk to someone if your telepathic abilities are strong enough. Now, maybe you'd need a method, you know, at minimum, you know, maybe you need a tree or a flame or a fucking candle or whatever. But like, I mean, you don't even have to be a telepath to do it with a glass candle, right? But I'd say that like, if we're dealing with the others who seem to have the ability to at least telepathically reanimate bodies and control them in a hive-minded sense, why wouldn't they also have the ability to send visions? I think that makes sense. I think they would, you know, if they're powerful telepaths, I think they might be able to send visions too. Yeah. No, I don't have any good argument against that. I think that's, I don't think you're I think Jon, you're the first person to ever like put that forward. I've never heard of, I mean, even though it was kind of in the show, right? Like in the show, the Night King invaded Bran's telepathic trip, you know, in a way. But like, um, yeah, I don't see why they wouldn't be able to if they're powerful. If they're powerful telepaths, why not? Lots of other powerful telepaths have been able to send dreams. Somebody was sending John the Fiddler dreams. Um, Bloodraven isn't in his tree yet, so I don't know. It's a very good idea. That's kind of I'm just trying to think if there any vision that would be worth them sending. Have you ever seen Sense8? You may like it. Fresh take on shared consciousness, cross-continent setting, production, budget similar to Game of Thrones. I'll look up Sense8. Huh. What's this premise here? Sense8 begins with a psychic connection of 8 strangers, a variety of walks of life from different parts of the world, birthed by a woman called Angelico, kills himself. The first season, the 8 are trying to live everyday lives and don't know why they're connected. Second season, they've attempts to hunt them down. Second season, they've grown accustomed to their connection and want to help each other. In the series finale, Huh. I wonder if it's I mean, 2 seasons. Does it close? Does it come together well? That's what I kind of interested in. But that's interesting about the shared consciousness, and I should check that out. The especially if it's a good story in general, or is it like a something where they wrap it up really quick. Um, Cancellation. It lacked an audience, so they were thinking about doing a third season. They left open the future of Sense. Oh, this is it's the Wachowskis made this, or at least just oh, that's really cool. Okay, I didn't realize that Lana and Lily Wachowski did this. That's pretty cool. Okay. Some hints about character trajectories or planned. Oh, that's too bad that they didn't get a proper closure to it. But um, have you read Hano the Navigator's Travels? No, no. And this is really fascinating because, like, I I for a while was like super obsessed with Carthaginians. By the way, so it's really interesting that you're like, oh, Hano the Navigator, Carthaginian explorer who lived in the first century, known for naval expeditions. I mean, I've heard about the Carthaginian naval expeditions. I didn't know that this guy Hano was the one doing it. Um, that they specifically mentioned Hano's accounts, the Periplus, the circumnavigation. Yes, I knew that. I knew that the Carthaginians circumnavigated Africa. The original version in Punic was lost. The Greek's translation is abridged, only 101 lines. The closest we have to Carthaginian literature. That's the really sad thing, is that like all the Carthaginian literature and songs and whatever are gone. Um, 2 copies were made. Interesting. Oh, too bad. Too bad the poor Hano's work was not. But I should definitely I've never read Hano's the translated abridged version of Hano's Travels, the closest thing we have to Punic literature. I'm sorry, but that's interesting though. I mean, only 100 lines. I should definitely read that. Um, da, 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 da. Um, Jesus. Thank you, Jeremy D. Damn. What's Jeremy D want to ask? Jeez. What's up with Littlefinger and the Tapestries? I don't know how super chats work. well, Jeremy D. Um, so for those that don't know, though, the Tapestries um, are obviously this reoccurring thing that appears in throughout the book series, and taken down by Cersei, the hunting tapestries that Robert has up in place of the dragon skulls, taken down by Cersei. We hear about them in the corner of a room. They're plopped in a basement for a while, and then Littlefinger asks for them. and they are brought to the Vale. Like Cersei mentions that Littlefinger has asked for them. And then she sends them to the Vale, and Littlefinger gives them to Royce, the lesser branch of Royce, and then to Waymar, not Waymar, to Randa's dad. What's fucking Randa's dad's name? I'm totally blanking on Albar and Randa's dad's name for a second. Nestor, of course. Fucking Nestor. And they're hanging up there at the gates of the moon, these fucking tapestries. So the fact that they keep coming back makes me think that they're pretty important. Some people kind of there's a discounted idea that the tapestries are just a display that Littlefinger has the support of the Iron Throne, that he has the support of Cersei and Tommen, and that it's this like statement of that. That's kind of the less not very interesting story to it, because they all know that Littlefinger has support of the Iron Throne. Like what do the tapestries prove? What are the so my theory is that that Littlefinger is also pulling off the same thing that Varys did. So Varys was talking about the danger of having Gendry in one hand, the bastard in one hand, and the book in the other. So you have both a historical document and you have the bastard right there, and the two together prove that Cersei's children are bastards. And I think that it's Littlefinger doing it again, and that Littlefinger has Maya Stone and he has the tapestries. We know that the tapestries are Baratheon tapestries, and they show pictures of Hunt on it. So, who would be in Baratheon tapestries of Hunt? Well, it would be Baratheons hunting. And so it would show that Baratheons from a long time ago, these old tapestries, all had the Baratheon hair. So my theory is that the Baratheon tapestries provide the same function as the book from A Game of Thrones on the genealogy or the hair colors and looks of people with Gendry. That Littlefinger is sitting there with the same two things again, and that's going to be useful for him pulling people away from the Iron Throne, because the Iron Throne, they're proven bastards. Look at that tapestry. Look at that bastard. That's because everyone knows that Maya Stone is Robert's bastard, and she looks like the tapestry, and Tommen and Myrcella do not. And so that's my big theory, is that it's just what Varys did. I mean, it was not really what Varys did. It's what Jon Arryn and Stannis were trying to do, and that Littlefinger's just doing it again. But there is this other idea that he's just hanging him up to show everybody that he has the support of the Iron Throne, which kind of doesn't make any sense, because he's also saying that he's about to rebel against the Iron Throne. So which is it? Like, you can't on the one hand be like, look, everybody, I've got the support of the Iron Throne. Oh, by the way, let's rebel against the Iron Throne, which is what he's planning on doing, right? I mean, he specifically said, like, I want to have Harry the Heir so we can invade Winterfell against the Boltons, who are supported by the Iron Throne. So Littlefinger has no use for saying to everyone that he has support of the Iron Throne. It's meaningless, because his whole plan is now rebelling against them, which he's specifically told Sansa. So that's why I'm saying, if he plans on rebelling against the Iron Throne, he has the things necessary to do it. But yeah. But yeah, thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Jeremy D. Jeremy D. I think I fucked up. It's okay, Jeremy D. It's okay, Jeremy D. We got you, Jeremy D. Um, I remember when Preston added worship to the list after going over every known Thousand World story. Yeah, I know. I kept thinking I got to the end, and then we kept finding more stories. Like people were started proving to me, they're like, this one's in. And then they're like, oh, with morning comes mistfall, like is mentioned by the guy in the Stone City. Therefore, with morning comes mistfall's in. Okay, you know. Go back, blasphemer, but you will not be at Akama. Are these lines from Lawrence? Not be at Akaba. I wish I had the movie better. Yes. Okay. That is the attack on Akaba scene. Yes. Go back, blasphemer. Oh man, but such a beautiful movie. Here's this scene with Peter O'Toole and Omar Sharif. Like an Omar Sharif, man. Most intense look. I think Omar Sharif's made like 200 movies. It's fucking crazy. Varys' speech is to help his guilt killing Kevin. It's like it was for a good cause. For a good cause. Oh, that's true. Kevin could get Qyburned. Un-Kevin, bring him back to life. He was telling the little birds. Yeah, I mean, there's good arguments. um, uh, Book Varys and Book Tyrion are the duo I want to see. But that's going to be so long before they are back together, right? Varys is still chilling in King's Landing. Tyrion, all the way in Marine. It'll take a book, take the Winds of Winter. Like, best case scenario, Tyrion gets back at the end of the Winds of Winter. It'd be very, very difficult. I mean, Varys could argue that Varys would head east or something, but Varys would probably stick around with Aegon and such, right? Yeah, I got you. Jeremy wants to know what's up with Littlefinger and the Tapestry. I got you, Ken. That's 5 more. Jesus, Ken, you're putting in so much as well. Oh, here we go. Will Syrio be in the fanfic? Shit. So there is this theory that like we never see Syrio die, right? And so could Syrio actually show up in the fanfic, right? Like, we last see him with his wooden sword and Meryn Trant. And so she puts Meryn Trant on the list, but this idea that like, let me think about the chances of Syrio surviving. Um, the first sword of Bravos does not run. That'd be funny. You know, it's funny if he does run. He sang as Sir Meryn slashed at him. Syrio danced away from the cut, his stick a blur. In a heartbeat, he had bounced blows off the knight's temple, elbow, throat, the wood ringing against the metal of its helm, gauntlet, and gorget. Arya stood frozen. Sir Meryn advanced. Syrio backed away. He checked the next blow, spun away, and the second deflected the third. The fourth sliced his stick in two, splintering the wood and shearing through the lead core. Sobbing, Arya spun and ran. And that was it. We never see him again. I mean, it's a good question. Like, is there a good reason for him to come back? You know, what role can he play? I'm like, it's like fun and all, but I'm like, where's he been hiding? How did he get away? Because Meryn's still around. You know, some people are like, oh, maybe he was a faceless man. And he's been Meryn the whole time. That would be crazy. But it's kind of like Secret Invasion, where we learn that like War Machine's been a Skrull for years and never attended Tony's funeral. That the guy at Tony's funeral was a Skrull. Could we get Syrio back? If someone, I'll say this, Ken. If someone put forward a good reason and a good story for Syrio to be alive, I would consider it. But like, keep in mind that like there's a lot of story to wrap up, and for me to be like, oh, let's waste some time bringing Syrio back to life, I don't know what I'd do. It'd be a very funny thing. Like, imagine like it would be kind of surprising. Like Aegon marches into King's Landing, and then he finds like the people at court, and then like Syrio is just among them, and it would be like a big mystery. Like, Syrio Forel is here. And everybody be like, wait, what? How is Syrio Forel like among the people at court? And everyone's like, why is Syrio Forel here? Like, I think that'd be a little funny and interesting that like Cersei and her posse abandon King's Landing, and Aegon marches in with Jon Connington, and they just have like Syrio Forel as just one of the people at court, and everyone's like, what? Why is Syrio Forel here at court? Where has he been this entire time? And like the mystery it would create in people's heads, like, what? I'm a little like, it's a little intriguing because people would be asking like, how is Syrio still alive? What is he doing? If somebody comes up with like a good, like eventual like fate for like what he was doing, like if Aegon, because that's how I'd bring him back. I would bring him back like Aegon marches in, and among the people at court, Syrio Forel is there, and everyone's like, okay, because Aegon doesn't know that he should have been killed in the coup. Jon Connington doesn't know that. They just find this guy at court, and they're like, oh, he was this guest at court. Okay, so. That would be, and that would make people's minds just blow. Like they're just this huge like what's going on? Like, maybe, but then I'd have to really understand like what he was doing. How was he hidden? Was he in the walls the whole time? Preston, what's your explanation of thoughts? The government obtaining 10% stake in Intel or in any private company? Thanks very much. Uh, I mean, I certainly don't like it. The problem with like government, it's the same with like the separation of church and state. My feelings about that is that like it's not just that you don't want the church controlling the state. You don't want the state controlling the church. Um, you don't want business controlling government, and you don't want government controlling business, and you don't want them to having like interests in it. Now, one could probably make another argument that like, well, U.S. has like a lot of interest in um, firms in which they're monopsonies for. Monopsony is, everyone's heard of monopoly. Monopsony is the reverse, where in a monopoly there's one producer, but in a monopsony there's one buyer. So for instance, most military contractors are, the government, it's a monopsony because the government's the only client. And so would it shift things like that? Um, I mean, it's something that I would is there a need for the government to have these stakes in this? It just seems like, I mean, this is what China does. They have ideas of their government has partial stakes and stuff. So I don't know. Like how much harm would it cause? Because obviously, like, I mean, there's corruption, conflict of interests, probably a lot of strange stuff like that. But I haven't really thought on this issue too much. But so I'm sorry about that. But obviously, you'd think you'd want separation of government from a lot of different things, like that, from in both directions. You don't want business affecting government. You don't want government affecting business. But of course, we still have lobbyists and stuff. So obviously, there's a big ha ha when it comes to like government and business not affecting each other, because obviously they do. But having an actual stake in companies seems like there'd be conflict of interest. The Red God is just it's just the face of a god of many faces. I mean, that's how they played it in the show, but in the religion of the Red God, like they specifically have the other, like the great other is the opposite, right? That the Red God is supposed to be life, right? That they believe that they're life. Even though if in the show they portray R'hllor as a facet of death. I'm not saying it's Ice Wizards, but it's Ice Wizards, yeah. Patchface killed Balon Greyjoy. Maybe. Hi, Preston. Hi, Preston. Yeah, George wrote geckos. Yeah, no, I mean the house is just filled with geckos. Who's warging Preston's bird? That's the thing, is I thought it was a bird. It's geckos. It's geckos the whole time. I'm sorry that in previous streams I said that there's a bird outside my window. It's not. It's geckos. I would agree with you 100% with Balon. I was going to say that that Balon, yeah, that's what the fanfic is for. Will Mercy collapse the gate or Arya or the Faceless? See, it's weird. So I do admit that, like, yes, like when they set up a description of the gate, it was this very they listed it as this very dangerous place in which all of these very important people are like chilling at. Now, the Sea Lord isn't there, but or is he? Am I? Is it just the? No, they're in the Sea Lord's box, right? As the Sea Lord himself. Does the Sea Lord himself even go? The Sea Lord had never visited the box. Name the box anyway. The Westerosi envoy is there, so we don't. So I guess the Sea Lord. We don't hear of the Sea Lord being there. Just the envoy. I mean, I admit, like, it's one of those things. Like, was George just seeding it for no reason? Like, the gate is specifically said to be this horrible trap that could like collapse. Would there be a second chapter at the gate? Is that something that like he would do? That there would be like another performance for Mercy to be there and have the it collapse? I'm trying to think like so. Here's the thing about Arya. We only have one Cat of the Canals chapter, and then we have one Blind Beth chapter, and we have one Ugly Little Girl chapter, and we have one. You know, does that mean we have one Mercy chapter? We had 3 Reek chapters. Okay, we've had 3 Elaine chapters. Could there be 3 Mercy chapters? Like, could Arya be Mercy more than one chapter? She says she's going to miss Mercy, which kind of implies that like this is the last time she's going to be Mercy. Which means like if this is the last time she's going to be Mercy, the gate would be the last time we're going to see that setting. So despite like them describing the gate as being this this dangerous place that could collapse at any time, unless she collapsed it off screen, like I don't see how we'd return there. It just doesn't seem like we'd return right there, right? Like it seems like in the Arya story, she's a different person every chapter. Cat of the Canals, Blind Beth, Ugly Little Girl, Mercy, and that each would get one chapter, and then the next one's her new identity. So as much as I find it weird that George did seed the fact that the theater is a death trap, she says goodbye. She says she's going to miss Mercy in her last little bit there. So could the Faceless Men collapse it? Well, if the Faceless Men were in on what Arya's doing, which I kind of think they are. Like I do think they are, because Arya has been like reading her death list every night, and they've been listening to her, and they say like, what are you reading every night? What are you reciting every night? And she's, you know, so they know about her death list. They know about Raph the Sweetling. It's a really big fucking coincidence that Raph the Sweetling shows up to a Faceless Man mission, and Arya's there. Now, all sorts of coincidences happen. I mean, Arya ran into Sam. I mean, that's a big coincidence. But one could say, like, okay, the Faceless Men, like, they clearly know about Raph the Sweetling. They sent her there because they knew Raph the Sweetling was going to be there, and she would try to kill him and screw up the talks between the Westerosi envoy and the Sea Lord, that the Faceless Man have political interests. And they do seem to have political interests. I mean, the kindly man definitely seemed interested in politics when he was like listening to Arya's tales of what was going on in the city. So if the Faceless Men have political interests, you know, I would say that they sent that Mercy being at the gate and Raph the Sweetling being at the gate was no coincidence. Like I would say that they have political interests and they know about Arya's death list. And that's enough for me to like say that the faceless men orchestrated that situation. Like that's just what's going to happen. If you're going to throw Raph, you know where Raph the Sweetling is going to be. You know it's going to be fucking chaos if you put Arya there. That's all they needed to know, and they did know that. They knew her death list. I mean, why else have them listen to the death list and know about it and interrogate her over it? So, Dragonstone epilogue. When else will we go there? It's a good point. So the bastard of Night Song is currently at Dragonstone, and that's an interesting situation because randomly of all the fucking houses that were transferred over to a different person, they gave Philip Foote Night Song. And so the bastard of Night Song claims to be the true heir of that. So that seems to be like a fairly important plot point, that the bastard of Night Song is there. And of course, Loras is there. Loras is missing. So we have those two plots to deal with. And who would be the POV on that? Well, I mean, Jon Con and Arianne are both coming to King's Landing. And, you could try to consolidate that plot by just having them in the same place, but one of them could briefly go to Dragonstone. So Jon Con or Arianne could be there. Also, Daenerys or Quentin or Victarion or one of the people coming from the east could make it to Dragonstone. So if we're going with the book plot, and I mean not the book plot, the show plot, which I do think the show plot was George's intention. I think absolutely Daenerys was meant to land on Dragonstone. And I'd say that it's absolutely Daenerys is supposed to land on Dragonstone because that's the fucking Dance of the Dragons. The Dance of the Dragons is Rhaenyra on Dragonstone and Aegon in King's Landing and them having a conflict and having a Dance of the Dragons. And when George is talking about a second Dance of the Dragons, she's talking about, I mean, there's also Rhaenyra has a little person advisor. And we're talking about the same thing happening again. Daenerys with a little person advisor against Aegon and King's Landing. Daenerys at Dragonstone, second Dance of the Dragons. Like, it does seem that Daenerys could be on Dragonstone, and we would resolve the Loras Bastard of Night Song like plots there that do need to be resolved. But if you wanted to resolve them earlier, you've got Arianne and Jon Con, and they can just hop over. They can hop over to Dragonstone at any time. So, so both of those are possibilities, but it does take a while. I mean, if you want to resolve it sooner, it's got to be Jon Con or Arianne. If you want to resolve it late, you can have it with Daenerys, but such a no Trey and no Carmine this evening. I still think we will learn something that makes us recontextualize Ned and make his actions seem less stupid. Is this copium? Look, I think we're going to learn some stuff that recontextualizes Ned in terms of Starfall and Ashara Dane and the Tower of Joy. I definitely think that. But can we reconcile the Ned's mercy to Cersei followed by his actions in his next chapter, um, where Robert arrives and all of a sudden he hasn't done anything with Cersei and her children. That's really really tough to reconcile. This is like where we are with. I'm sure Ross is asking this because this is like where we are with the going over Game of Thrones, and in going over like it is really really difficult to reconcile those two Ned chapters. Like Ned is so stupid because it's not that he is misguided in his actions. He's doing contradictory actions. He has one chapter where he's giving Cersei mercy and doesn't want her or her children killed by Robert. And so he tells them to leave town, and then he lets Robert come right into town and doesn't do anything to protect them. Like he doesn't like arrest them and pop them on a boat to Essos. So like, well, what did you want? Did you want them to die or not? Because your actions are completely inconsistent. Like you're not arresting Cersei and her kids because you're giving them the chance to go to Essos and go into exile because you don't want Robert killing them. But then you don't do anything when Robert comes into town. Like you should have fucking arrested them and popped them on the boat. Like your whole thing was about saving their life. Like your whole thing, and then you just forgot it. It's really really difficult to reconcile that. Other than just be, Ned's fickle. One day he's feeling merciful and the next day he hates Cersei. You know, his weird like love for Cersei is his secret sexual love for Cersei is making his mind crazy. He's just his head's spinning like a top over Cersei. What does he do? She makes him crazy. It's the only thing that kind of that would work. But yeah, but something later that would recontextualize Ned on that event, I don't think so. The problem is that no one else is around. I mean, I guess in Cersei's mind, she would have to think about it. Like what Cersei thought. Cersei sent a letter to no. Cersei did this. And there's some Cersei action in between those two chapters that somehow make Ned's actions make sense. I don't know. I think it's a lot of cope. I can't make the two make sense. If Trey is right and Daemon is the most inbred Targaryen, then they picked the perfect actor for the part. Matt Smith looks weird. Just an observation. I mean, I think people got very angry at me for saying that Matt Smith looked weird. Obviously, he does a lot with what he has. I mean, have you seen Matt Smith's wife? I mean, is Matt? Oh yeah, wait. Matt Smith's married to the woman, the girl from. Matt Smith's married to the woman from Baby Driver. Oh, right. If you haven't seen Baby Driver is an incredible movie, but if there's also like she was also in Yesterday, that Beatles movie, right? Let me see here. Or he's not married to her, but is he with her? The woman from Baby Driver. He was in a relationship with Brazilian actress and model Mayana Moura. And then he was with Lily James. Oh, he's no longer in a relationship with Lily James. He was with her for 5 years. Huh. does a lot with his confidence, man. He does a lot with his confidence. But at the same time, I think Trey also said that Rhaenyra was like the second most inbred. And I mean, both actresses that play Rhaenyra are pretty classically beautiful with pretty neutral features. So, I don't know if the inbred argument um, works too much. Trey and I talked about this a little bit about um, his in his video. One of the big problems he brings up is the fact that like the most inbred family tree is the Ptolemy family tree with Cleopatra, and like none of these people should be surviving with this like with the inbred ratio with the inbred coefficients. And I was just mentioning that like yeah, the history has to be wrong. Like the history, like the family trees just have to be wrong. Like there's no way people that inbred were having kids with no problems. Like people much more inbred than the Habsburgs are somehow just fine. And so that was my thing. It was just like the histories are wrong. Like people lied about somebody marrying their sister. It wasn't really the sister. It was somebody else. They weren't really, or it was a half sister or somebody. They fathered the person on somebody else, and they're lying that it was the brother and sister or something. If you put Hano in Westeros, it would make sense. That's true. I mean, could you have a Hano, at least a Hano like character? Name somebody Hano. Um, Ever read Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? I think I did. I did way back in high school. This Android's Dream Electric Sheep is the Blade Runner inspiration. Um, and yeah, that it's fairly. Yeah, now I'm remembering now. It's been a long, long time. I mean, keep in mind it's been over 30 years since I read the story. But like, yeah, him finding the robotic toad or something. But I think he doesn't he make. Oh yeah, he does do sequels. I never read the sequels, but he did write like three sequels to it. But it's been a long time. I'm sorry if I um okay, let's get to the end here. Man, Ryan Reynolds is here. Man, so many celebrities in the chat. If Beric and Kat can retain their consciousness and memories from when they were alive, do you think whites have that ability? And how many memories, ethics, and conscious do Beric and Kat actually keep? Oof. Um, this is a really interesting kind of thing. I think I'm trying to think about it in a George R. R. Martin way. Um, so like the big story about how George thinks about consciousness is the glass flower, and in that he's got um, so the story. So Clarinamas or Claronimus or however he's this character that everybody in the Thousand Worlds universe talks about. This really important character. And so on this planet, this woman, she plays this mind swapping game, consciousness swapping game, where people people, betters go into this pool, they fight in a simulated reality, and then at the end you can win better bodies at the end. So, and she has swapped into the body of a young girl. She's stolen a body. So consciousness swapping and stuff like this, these sorts of things are in George's wheelhouse. And so Claronimus shows up, and he's had the memories of, he's an android who's had the memories of Claronimus like put into his body, and he's claiming that he's Claronimus. And they're like, well, Claronimus died like 1,000 years ago, like during the Double War. Like, what the fuck what are you fucking talking about? Or just after the Double War or something. And so you can't be Claronimus. And he's like, well, no, I am. My consciousness is in this android. And then by the end of the story, I mean, this gets into even the topics that get brought up in Alien Earth. At the end of the story, he kind of admits that he can't be Claronimus, because he's not human, because human beings have memories that fade and they forget, and they're not immortal, and not being immortal is an important aspect to humanity, and forgetting is an important aspect of humanity. And meanwhile, the woman who's in this young girl's body, she like envies his position and he envies hers, and they do a swap, and she ends up in his body. And the idea is that over time she'll stop being human and start being this android, and Claronimus will live on. The memories of Claronimus will live on in this new girl, and it's a very beautiful story. But George definitely thinks about like memory and consciousness, souls being a little different, even though it makes no sense that you could consciousness swap someone and have the memories. That makes no sense. Like, if you consciousness swapped with someone else, like you'd be different if your consciousness was different, but you'd have none of your old memories, and all of this other person's memories would be completely weird. No one has ever written a story where someone consciousness swaps and leaves their memories behind. But I think what George is going for with like Beric and Kat is that their consciousness is still there, but there's been damage to their memories, that there's been so much trauma that it's more like they are somebody that has like Alzheimer's or something, where there may be an essence of the person there, but like every time there's just been so much damage to the memories that they're less of who they are. It may even go further and say that there's less of the consciousness as well. Like each time there's this idea that, Beric was talking about like too many times, and he's been brought back too many times, that he's not exact. He's faded, and he's not really who he was once. And even when they talk about like the second life, they always talk about the second life consciousness, like fading into the others, consciousness disappearing over time. So I think there is this idea of at least the memories or soul of consciousness and all of that being incomplete, and it being not a full being, that the death has taken over a lot of it. So I think that like, how many memories, ethics, consciousness do they actually keep? I would say probably relatively little. Like, I would say there's just like a faint hint of like what's left. I mean, I think probably with Kat, all she remembers like is this trauma and the vengeance and that last moment, but like everything else is kind of just fading away. She doesn't really have like those memories left. And so, it's half a person, less than half a person. And like, what does it mean to have half a consciousness, The same with Barrack. He was not the character that went in. The coming back changed him. So I think it's something like that. Like you have to ask yourself like really weird brain busting questions like what does it mean to have half a consciousness, like if you can have a blended consciousness, like what's half a consciousness? What happens if half your memories are around and you're half who you are? Just a faded negative of the image you used to be, like what does that mean? And maybe it's a useless question, the sound of one hand clapping, but it's certainly like the sort of thing that George writes about. Like what is the nature of consciousness? Man, it makes me want to read The Glass Flower again. It's been a long time. It's been about, does Maya Stone know that she's Robert's daughter? I think she does. Because I'm going to check on this. Hold on a second. Maya Stone. Though, I mean, I thought Maya Stone did, but even if she did, because I know that, like, at least at a young age, Robert used to play with her. And young Robert Baratheon fathered Maya, his first child, and a commoner. The Starks knew about it. Lyanna knew about it. And she became. Robert brought Ned during daily visits to Maya, even after he lost interest in the mother. At some point after birth, Robert expressed interest in taking one of the baseborn daughters to court, and Queen Cersei said the city is not a healthy place for a growing girl, threatening her. She's somewhat unknown to be the bastard daughter of the king. She has vague memories of him as a strong man tossing her and catching her. Oh. Yeah, you're right. So the wiki says it's unclear if Maya is aware. I think you're bringing up a really interesting point here, because I don't know why the mother would not tell her. Like why would you keep that secret from her? But you are right that there is this weird, I remember it now, where she's talking about like memories of her father. Let me get this. I remember a man throwing me in the air when I was very little. He stands as tall as the sky and he throws me up so high it feels as though I'm flying. We're both laughing so much I can hardly catch a breath. And finally, I laughed so hard I wet myself, but that only makes him laugh the louder. I was never afraid when he was throwing me. I knew that he was always there to catch me. Then one day he wasn't. Men come and go. They lie or die or leave you. Certainly, I get it. Like, certainly the way that story is told, it sounds like she doesn't know who that man was. But it also doesn't make any sense that her mother would not tell her. And it seems everyone else knows. Like everyone else knows. Like I think the servants at the Eyrie know. Um, at some point she would ask her mother, like, who's my dad? And she would say, oh, yeah, well, it's the king. Or somebody would mention it. Like, it seems impossible that when it's just publicly known that Maya Stone is Robert's bastard daughter, that she would not hear about it at some point. And I get that story she tells is really weird, but I don't think the story, she's telling the story to say men come and go, that it, but it may be that just that Maya didn't want to bring up Robert to Elaine, I think, but it just doesn't make sense. Like that she wouldn't know, that her mother would not tell her, or that all of the fucking people in the fucking world that know that she's the bastard daughter of Robert wouldn't tell her. Because everyone seems to know. Someone would have fucking told her. So I get that story makes it seem like it, but she has to. Um, Preston, do you fuck with cryptocurrency? Fuck no. Fuck no, do I fuck with cryptocurrency? No, 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 no. Like there's all these people that like deal with trying to make a quick buck, cryptocurrencies, online poker, grifting activities on the internet, uh, .com bubbles. I mean, it's always the same crew. Day trading. It's always the same fucking crew, right? It's always the same people without any talent who are trying to get rich quick. But I don't fuck with cryptocurrency. There's no fucking reason. Why would no one's ever given me a good reason why cryptocurrency should exist. Like why? You get these like long stories about like, oh, it's the banks, man, the banks, and you're just like, I'm fine with banks. I like banks. Banks are great. Um, would you rather be a lawyer, teacher, headmaster of a private school, or financial advisor? I mean, I think a teacher would be would be the most interesting. Here's the thing. I think going to law school is really an interesting work. Um, but I think being a lawyer is can kind of be boring, because you're just doing the same thing over. You learn a very specific part of the law, and then you're just doing that over and over again. So I don't know if like being a lawyer is that great. I mean, the money is great, but like, I think going to law school would be fascinating. I just don't know if being a lawyer would be interesting. Being a teacher, I mean, teacher's rough because you got to deal with so many performance reports and stuff like that. But I think that might be interesting. I don't think headmaster would be very interesting. I think being headmaster is going around begging for money. You're trying to constantly get donations. That's what being a headmaster is financially making a school afloat. It's not. And financial advisor, no, I think that's also, you learn a very specific thing and then you tell the same spiel over and over again to people. Oh, well, you've got to diversify your assets. So this and this amount. And no, I wouldn't be a financial advisor would probably be the most boring of them all. Lawyer, you might run into some interesting cases now and again, but all of that, teacher is the most interesting by far. You can also travel the world if you're a teacher. You can go wherever you want. But yeah, but the fact that there's not enough money in teaching is the sad thing. Mm-mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm-mm. Favorite dessert? Jeez. Never been too much of a sweet tooth, but trying to think of like I like German chocolate cake. I like fucking I like a good creme brulee. I like a tiramisu. Those are all good. That's all good. Trying to think of I like a good apple pie. Like a good apple pie, good pumpkin pie. I love that. Love it with a good crust. Maybe I like pie. Fucking pie, man. A good apple pie. It's the best. But I can't really eat. I think I gotta have a gluten free crust or something for me now. That's the yeah. But thanks for you, Karma and Trey Dude. Oh, thank you. I mean, I get to sit here and like shoot the shit and analyze text and have fun, having fun doing that. It's very weird. Very weird. Um, on this very specific topic of but it's surprisingly rich. Some people are like how to like some people want to when I explain like you find out that they've got the YouTube channel, right? And people are always surprised. They're like, I don't understand. Didn't that show like end years ago? And I'm like, well, there's a lot to talk about. There's spin-off shows, there's other science fiction, there's a lot of analysis of the text. The text goes on, there's theory crafting, there's other works, stuff like that. There's a lot there. There's a lot of richness to things. I mean, shit, like, you know, just my last reread did I figure out that like Dunk was sexually abused as a 5 or 6 year old, right, like that kind of stuff, like finding that and being like, oh fuck, like discovering what a stew was and being like, holy shit, like George wrote that. I wonder if that's going to make it into the show. Like, oh god. um you're like constantly unearthing little things like that. It's so much fun, you know. The fact that you can still go through this stuff and like find new stuff and have fun conversations, you know. So, um, so it's been good. How do you respond to criticism that you've been focusing on tertiary characters in the fanfic while sidelining fan favorites? A Feast for Crows had the same complaints. Well, the problem is that this is a sequel to A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons, which had all of these like new characters, and that they're brought in for a reason, and they need to be wrapped up. Um, I mean, yeah, you can. It's. I mean, you could argue that like, oh, I'm like we are sidelining it, but the thing is this is what George did. Like, this is what George set this up. Did like I'm just trying to think like. I'll bring up the fanfic. Let's talk about the fanfic some. It's always fun to talk about the fanfic. But look, like, so here it is right now. So, I mean, can you argue with me? Like, can you argue that there needs to be a prologue that is not a main character, that deals with like things that George said? He said that Jane Westerling was going to be in it. Like, do you think that my prologue of like Maester John bringing in elements of Old Town like is inappropriate? Elaine 1, that's George. Ariana 1, that's George. Princess Justice, do you think that like there isn't going to be a wrap up to the Arya Hota story? Like, that needs to happen, right? Like, that needs to be there. Daenerys, main character. Jaime, pretty main character. Elaine 2, like wrapping up the Elaine story. Is Sansa not a main character? Like, is that inappropriate for Arion 2? That's George. Okay, another Hotah chapter. Okay, we've had one more Hotah chapter. You know, did you just want one? Is that what people really wanted? They just wanted one Hotah chapter to kill them off and be done with that. We can forget about Darkstar and Hotah forever. Is that what you wanted? Is that what anyone wanted? That we brought up this plot line in A Feast for Crows and we're just gonna end it, you know? Like in a Game of Thrones when they bring back Osha and then just kill her. Or when they bring back Blackfish and then they just kill him. You know, when they bring back every character, when they bring back Rickon and then just kill him. You know, like, oh, I haven't seen that character in fucking 5 seasons, dead. Like, is that what people want? Um, you know, wrapping up Jon Con Arion with that battle, Forsaken. This is George. Sam in Old Town. Do you think like we don't need a Sam in Old Town? Bran, main character. Victarion, this is George, Barristan, George, Tyrion, George, Barristan, George. Like, I have a Quentin here, and then Tyrion's main character, right? Cersei, Battle of Blood, Theon, Mercy, Asha, that's Battle of Ice, Davos doing the Skagos thing, Melisandre dealing with the wall. Like, the most you could say, like, get like being as like brutal to Preston as possible. You could say like, oh gosh, you went too far by having the boy in the pyramid and the envoy. Like that's about it. Like that's about as far as like the criticism can go. Like what else like how like there's 2 chapters. I did 2 chapters that you think goes too far. I wrote one more chapter for Ariel Hotah than you wanted, or 2 more chapters for Ariel Hotah than you wanted. One more chapter for Quentin. I mean, that's it. Like everything else is focusing on Jaime, focusing on Dany, focusing on Cersei. Um, like it's just how the story is set up. There's 4 battles and 2 trials by combat and Dany, right? That's the story, and Hotah and Sam. So, but nonetheless, like I don't know if I could, you know, if it's really that um, that much of a focus on that. It's like I get it. Like it's been years. You want to hear about certain characters. You want, um, but it's trying to get them all, you know. All critics of the show say that landing on Dragonstone is the stupidest decision possible. I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to do it, but I'm saying it. I think it was George's plan. I'm not saying I'd do it in the fanfic, but I do think it was George's plan. It parallels Fire and Blood too much, you know. I mean, it's not that I don't agree. I mean, I do agree that landing on Dragonstone is not a strategically great position. Like, why would you do that when you've got Dorne? Like, land in Dorne. Yeah, I gotcha. Would Theon be released from his wardhood, or would he always be a Stark hostage? Is he kind of old for still being a ward hostage? So Theon himself thought that he was going to be married to Sansa, or he at least hoped. He hoped that he was going to be married to Sansa, and that somehow that peace would like unite the realm or something, or unite him with the North. You know, or maybe, you know, Ned, you know, there's Arya too, or whatever 6th child that Kat was hoping to have, stuff like that. But even beyond that, like having Ned marry Theon off to a northern house to create a northern alliance is not an out of the question sort of thing that could have happened. And so he would be placed, you know, he'd be married to some northern house, and then he would be, you know, he would have a place there where he'd transition from ward to northerner or something like that. But yeah, Is he kind of old for a ward hostage? I mean, I'm trying to think of some other wards. He is. I mean, because he's like 19, right? Or am I making that up? Is he only 17? Is he 17 when he starts? He's no, he's not. He's like eight. He's born in either 288, 278 or 279. So he's 19. No, he's 19. I was right in the first place. Yeah, he does seem old. I don't know if we have any other older wards. Is there? I wish they had a. I'm sure there's something, and maybe in Fire and Blood, about some older ward or whatever, but it does. You know, you do think that maybe they could marry him off to somebody and try to create a piece like that. But yeah, there didn't seem to be any. Without the war, there didn't seem to be any plan to give up Theon. So I don't know what would have happened. Yeah, marry him off to marry him off somewhere for. I mean, make him far from the sea. I'm trying to think. Marry him to Alice Karstark. Marry him Alice Karstark or something, and then he's give him a dream for spring. Maybe he's part of a dream for spring. But of course, a dream for spring, like the dream of spring, like was obviously not something that George thought about in a Game of Thrones, but he was given a northern keep. The thing is, he is heir to the Iron Islands. He would eventually want that seat over once, if Balon were to die of old age versus some sort of northern house. But I guess you could marry him to a northerner and hope that when he eventually takes his seat as King of the Iron, or Lord of the Iron Islands, that he feels still connected to Robb. Marry Robb and Theon to sisters. That might be a way to do it. Got to find some sisters, and then marrying both of the Drinkwater twins. It's okay, getting to the. I have memories of my dad meeting me at daycare after the divorce and drawing Snoopy and Scooby, but I don't know he was my dad for years later. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Also, like, I have this memory of this person who everyone just says looks exactly like the fucking king, like. He's big and strong and throws me in the air, but then he's gone. Yeah, it doesn't seem possible that she wouldn't have heard from somebody and just asking your mom, like, wouldn't her mom tell her? Of course, Oh, Preston, Chicago style pizza and pie. Yeah, no, I'm big. I love me some crust, man. Some good crust. Um, oh, what would all the dream senders, whoever they are, have done if Westeros wasn't a culture of conveniently symbolic animal heraldry? Oh God. I remember, do they still have the series? There used to be this series on YouTube called, oh, it's like Aliens Explain or something. I want to call, oh, I don't even know what it's like. Oh, fuck. What was it? It's not Alien. But whatever the case, it's, I mean, I'm sure someone will tell me what it was, but like, it's, it's, it's of course supposed, it's this guy pretending to be an alien explaining various things in human society, and of course, like when explained from an alien perspective, it's ridiculous. And so he's talking about literature, and he's like, often in literature, colors are used metaphorically, and he says because what else are colors for? And that kind of like blew my mind because I was like, holy shit, like color metaphor is the tritest shit on earth. Like, yeah, no, colors in the real world tell us like when things are hot, what is life, what things are poisonous. Like they have very, very utilitarian reason, functions. You don't want to you don't want to eat things that are colored blue, bright blue. They're probably poison. You don't want to touch something that's red hot, that looks red because it's probably hot. If it's green, well, it looks like it's probably a leaf. You might be able to eat it. Like that kind of stuff. Like colors are important in a very utilitarian sense. But then in literature, like what are colors for? They're for metaphors. Like that's all they're fucking for. Like is for metaphor, for saying something's black or something's white because it's pure. It's black because it's corrupt or death, or it's white because it's pure, and it's green because it's filled with life. Everything. Then you realize, like, oh my God, like color metaphor is just so easy, and it's just everywhere, and it's all people do with colors. Like, oh, what else are colors for? But it's funny, you're right though, with like the animal heraldry, like everything, it sounds so poetic when they're like, and then the stag killed the lion. And it's like, well, what if you didn't fucking live in this world where everyone had heraldry? What would you fucking do with your goddamn vision if no one had any heraldry? What would you fucking do? I mean, they'd assign it anyway. Like people would have random nicknames, you know, and then they'd somehow figure it out from there. But you're right though. Like, man, shouldn't everybody have figured it out? Like, oh right, I'm getting a vision of a fucking bear. Oh, whose sigil is a fucking bear? Like everybody's sitting there, like, oh my God. I think in the goddamn scene where the ghost of High Heart is talking about the fucking fish. That's the thing. I think Lemon Cloak is like, what the fuck are you talking about? Dreams, grumbled Lemon Cloak. What good are dreams? Fish, women, and drowned crows. Like, Lem, do you not fucking live in a world of fucking sigils where everyone is sitting around like talking about each other in terms of animal metaphors? Like, have you not fucking figured that out, Lem? That fish woman would be Tully? Like, you're in the fucking Riverlands. And a fish woman would of course be like, and drown crows. Like, if you not, I mean, I suppose he could get like drowned crows. Like, what do you mean? The people on the wall, But I saw a dream of burning heart, butchering a golden stag. Like, at this point, have they not heard of Stannis' sigil? Have they not heard of the golden stag? Oh, you are very right. Um, so any ideas for Cersei 3, Arya 2, Cersei 2? Yes. So generally speaking, my ideas for Cersei 3 or for Sansa 3 is with we pick up a bit later with them catching up to the rest of the plot. With them at Maidenpool is the idea is that they've taken that the river the Vale forces have begun their invasion, and they would take. Um, I received a message from somebody years ago telling me that like it makes a lot more sense for them to all go by sea than to have a big caravan over land. Um, and so if they're going by sea, then it makes sense for them to take Maidenpool if they're trying to conquer the Riverlands. So yes, Sansa 3, for the most part, that's where we start. Generally speaking, the plot is collapsing towards Harrenhal. So they are heading they're heading to Maidenpool, and then we have to deal with the Frey Civil War and who's going to align with whom, and a lot to do with Bonifer Hasty as well, like figuring out that whole dynamic. Arya 2, I mean, I know that Dunsen is going to be in it. It's going to be Dunsen. Arya is going to, but I got to figure out like what's the setting, who should be. I do not know like who Arya will be, who her next assignment is, what character she's going to be. Got to figure all of that out. But I do know that Dunsen will be in it. And then Cersei 2 is going to be, that's going to be her trial. That's her trial by combat is Cersei 2. So that's happening. Brienne, I'm probably not going to focus on Brienne until the Jaime story is until after Jaime 2. So I might do Jaime 1, Jaime 2, Brienne 2, or something like that. Pick up the story begins from Jaime's perspective and then ends from Brienne's perspective. But for the most part, those two are going to stay together, and that's going to be the same plot line. So yeah, so. Oh, Dunk was sexually abused. Yes, if you well, it's in my last Dunk is Coming 5. So they mentioned that Dunk is from the stews and alleys of King's Landing. A stew is a slang term for medieval bathhouse, and the bathhouses were fronts for prostitution. And so you kind of say, okay, well, what the hell is a 6-year-old boy doing at a bathhouse prostitution den? When you look at George's other mentions of stews in Ice and Fire, it's always, oh, we found a half-trained boys from the stews of Lannisport. It's always boys from the stews. So it's just like, now some people are like, well, that's not very much evidence, but it's like, what else is it? Like, what else is it? Why would a kid be at a stew? Why would a kid be at a bathhouse? What other thing? Plus, Dunk does think about the cruelty of men. He says children can be cruel, so can men. So it's just like, there's just like, I really searched. I was just like, is George really saying this? But there's no other option than the fact that like we're talking about children at a prostitution den. Like that's what a stew is. Like I wish stew had some other meaning or there was some other possibility, but a stew is a bathhouse, and the bathhouses were prostitution joints. And so when you're talking about like boys at stews, like what do you think it is? Do you think, I mean, George doesn't shy away from talking about boys getting buggered, you know? Like this is not like this is not in George's wheelhouse, because of course it is, but yeah. But I can think of a few reasons would be why he'd be there. I mean, you can come up with excuses if you really want to like twist everything around, like twist the words to try to like make it sound to come up with another possibility. But Dunk hates King's Landing. He and he thinks about people being abusive and mean. He thinks it's a harsh life. And so like what we can go over, like these are the previous things of stews. So the wing 2 was all cavalry, where the right was mailed fist of knights. The vanguard was made of the sweepings of the west. Mounted archers in leather jerkins, a swarm of massive undisciplined free riders and sellswords, field hands on plow horses, armed with scythes and their fathers' rusted swords, half-trained boys from the stews of Lannisport, and Tyrion and his mountain clansmen. So we have half-trained boys from the stews of Lannisport. Boys from, so boy, like we're talking about men over here, but now we have boys from stews. And we know that these are all supposed to be like not fighters, kind of worthless wretches. So like some sort of a boy from the stews. Okay. And then he uses something similar later in A Clash of Kings. We have some time yet before we must face them. The lot will be sellswords, free riders, and green boys from the stews of Lannisport. Sir Stafford must see that they're armed and drilled before they dare risk battle. Make no mistake, Lord Tywin's not a kingslayer. So again, we're talking about boys from stews. You know? And then we've got, we held the city today, my lord. The kettle is close to boiling. So many thieves and murderers are abroad that no men's house is safe. The bloody flux is spreading in the stews along Pisswater Bend. So somebody had mentioned like maybe stew doesn't mean a bathhouse. Maybe it seems something metaphorical. Like maybe it just means like the bowels of King's Landing, like the stew of King's Landing. But here the bloody flux is spreading in the stews along Pisswater Bend. Like stews are definitely establishments here. It's not like a general abstract thing. Like stews are bathhouses. Like that's what they are. So we've got we know that stews are bathhouses, and we have 2 references of boys coming from bathhouses. And Dunk is a 3rd one. 3 references of boys coming from bathhouses. So I don't know what else it could be. Like kids of the prostitutes. What happens to the kids of prostitutes? Do the children of what happens to the children of prostitutes? You know? What do they do with them? What do people do? Don't they call a bowl of brown a stew? I mean, whether they call it or not, that's kind of irrelevant. But like stewing. No, I mean, it's not stewing. It's like, it's not a metaphorical like thing. It's they're like, that's what they are. Like stews, like Um, like we, you can find plenty of things here on like medieval ages, the medieval, the Middle Ages, and what stews are. Okay, like bathhouses in Southwark were called the stews, and they were largely regarded as just fronts for brothels. Okay, like this is a regular thing. Okay, I'm not like he's using this word stews. Um, I mean, I don't understand like how, like what's the alternative? Like when you say you're from a bathhouse, you're a child from a bathhouse who specifically said they've been abused, and in every single one of the references, I mean, there's only three, but in every single one, we're talking about boys coming from stews. Um, Sewers or gutters, but no, there was a specific thing. He said it's not just like sewers or gutters, like it's a specific place. First of all, George is very careful with his metaphors. He doesn't mix them. So the fact that he says stews and alleys, an alley is an actual thing. So a stew is going to be an actual thing. He wouldn't put like a metaphor next to an and. Like I picked up. Some writers do this. They're like, oh, he smelled like cologne and dreams. And you're like, cologne and dreams, like that's something another writer would do. Like George doesn't do that. Like he does metaphors, he does similes, but he's very careful that they like work it precisely, and he wouldn't mix them up like the stews and alleys, like a metaphor first and then an actual thing second. Even in those situations, you usually put the metaphorical thing second. Like I say, like you know he smelled like cologne and dreams. Like you would never say he smelled like dreams and cologne. Like it's just, he said stews and alleys. Like stews are a physical thing like alleys. The stews along Pisswater Bend, they're an actual place. It's not metaphorical. Stews are medieval baths. Like that's just what they are. Like there's no getting around that. Um, it's now the question is like, okay, could he have been hanging out? Is there a reason for children to be hanging out at a stew where they're not being sexually abused? And it's just like, yeah, I understand it's a horrible thought and you don't want to be thinking about this stuff, but like George has already put this in the story. Like his description of 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 what well fuck, it's this is me like blanking. Lynn Corbray, right? His description of Lynn Corbray is that he's just interested in boys, right? Like this is already in the story. That like child prostitutes exist. Um, I mean, Jesus Christ, the mercy chapter is this whole fucking like thing, right? Um, but Stu Dunk may be true, but does it take away? Is it important to the character? Maybe it doesn't matter where you come from or good or bad. I mean, I think it. I don't know if it actually like changes the story much. Actually, it just like really puts a exclamation point on how bad his life was in King's Landing and how Sir Arlen rescued him. I mean, it's one thing to be like, oh, he was a street rat, and we all kind of abstractly don't know what that's like. Like he lived in alleys, like he stole fruit from the vendor, and they're like, stop, you street rat, like that kind of stereotype from a movie. Um, but by saying like, holy shit, like he was like an abused kid. I mean, I suppose we already know that they have child pit fighting, right? Wasn't that in Fire and Blood? The pit fighters would use children. So I mean, we already kind of know that like the children are being abused here. You think they're not being sexually abused? You think that's where they're drawing the line? Um, like this is already in the story. Like we already have this. We know that it goes on. And then and George specifically says that like they're stews. Um, and maybe sewers are along and the editors made a mistake. I mean, I don't know if, like I say, I don't think it changes the story very much. It just like puts a really big, like, oh crap, you know. Like it shocked me too, but it's just like I can't get around like that's what a stew is. Debating over if George R. R. Martin wouldn't mess up a word from a book called The Hedge Knight, where the hedge knights don't exist. Um, I mean, that's all true. But he used it from like hedge. He used the hedge wizards or whatever, that kind of stuff, or hedge teachers. His Irish stuff was like George means knight errant. Yeah, of course. But what? I skipped the super chat. I'll get you. I did this one. I already did that one for you. I did this one. Did this one. I did this one. Here we go. Plans for adapting the music aspect of the story. The Reigns of Castamere were done really well in the show compared to the words on the page. Huh. Well, I mean, we added a couple songs. Like we've definitely been adding songs. Like there was a song in the Elaine chapter, and there was a song in the Victorian chapter, and there was a song in um, the Asha chapter. So I think we're adding more songs than George had. I think kind of as a joke because Lord of the Rings had so many fucking songs that just went on. So I mean, having like real songs in the real world that like correspond to them, I suppose. I could ask some more favors. The Glidus did like some incredible songs for when we had this stream about the Ironborn songs, and it was he did a really good job, but a lot of people did a really good job on these songs. So I mean, we could make music versions of them too, but anyway. All right, so it is late. I've come to my end, and then that's it. So thank you all. I'm going to head to bed. Thank you all for being with me. No Carmine and no Trey tonight, but that's about all. I will talk to you guys soon. Hopefully this week. What am I gonna do? Hopefully, I'm gonna try to focus. I gotta start focusing on Dunk and Egg more if I'm gonna get it finished before it comes out. So I might focus on Dunk and Egg, but we're also working on the fanfic, trying to get the Hota chapter together. So anyway, I will talk to you guys later. Thank you everybody. And we'll see you guys next time.